Hey friends, it's Calyx. I just wanted to say I know I haven't been on YouTube for a while. The start of this year has been a little insane. I don't mean like there's been a lot going on. I mean there's been about the normal amount of stuff going on, and I still want to try and get a part-time job. There's been some stuff going on. I feel like it's the normal amount, like not nothing extra or big, just like more my mental health. As you guys know, last May I lost my grandpa, and that's been like really rough for me. And I don't think I realized just how hard it had become until recently. I n- clearly do not handle loss well, apparently. I mean, this is the first big loss I've had in my life. I've lost other family members in the past, but that I didn't know as well or weren't as big a part of my life or weren't as important to me. Like, I don't know how to explain it. And I've lost my great grandmother, my cousin Vi, and the family dog was probably the biggest one. And I feel like there wasn't much surrounding that. Like, I wasn't it affected me in a way, but not in the same way as losing my grandpa. And I was having a really rough time, especially with the Christmas holidays when things came back around. And it was just a really rough time for me during the Christmas holidays. And I think I've been in a depressive episode for, I don't know, 5, 6 weeks. Um, I feel like I'm finally on the other side of it, but it's been a while. I also wanted to say I haven't updated or I haven't read this book in almost a year. I did check, and my last upload of a couple chapters was apparently back in February of 2025. So that means it's been a year since I've uploaded or read this book at all. Like, it's been pretty much a year. So, I guess enjoy. Hopefully there will be more uploads. I also have my writing though that I'm working on. I'm gonna try and give more priority to that this year. And I do have other smaller side projects that I'm working on. I have some things that I'm doing. I don't want to get into it because I might upload it to YouTube and it's yeah, like I said, I don't want to get into it. In case I end up uploading it to YouTube. Um, and I know my nose has been an issue pretty much ever since I started having this nasal issue. I'm pretty sure it was back in 2017, 2018 that it started becoming a big issue. Definitely before the pandemic. I just don't remember when, but, like, I can look back at my really old videos and see that I didn't have my sinus condition back then, but this is a chronic sinus condition, like, just so you guys know, I've been to the doctor, I've been on tons of medications, I've been tested for all the allergies, it's non-allergic rhinitis, that's what it's called, and basically, there's nothing to be done. There is one procedure that could potentially give me a lot of relief or even make it go away altogether. The problem is it costs $2,000 and it's not covered by ODSP. So we are looking to see right now. I have to get my mom on. I have to get my mom on it. And I did mention it to my mom, but I wanted to mention it to her again so that she can hopefully get on it. Like, I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to mention it to her before she actually looks into it, but, I wanna see if we can cover the procedure through her work insurance. That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, I might have to wait a couple years, and I don't know how much I'm actually allowed to say, but I could be coming into quite a bit of money soon. Again, I can't not gonna say any more than that right now because I don't know what I'm allowed to share and, like, not allowed to share, but I, it is a long road, but hopefully I will get the money that I'm hoping for. That's all I'm gonna say. Enjoy some chapters of A Guardian Angel. Chapter 111, The Limelight. Fiona was stressed. This wasn't everyday stressed. This was the center of attention. People need to stop touching her stressed. She sat in the makeup chair while the women did her makeup. A gentleman behind her was doing her hair. This was insane. Beyond insane. They'd received a call from Lynch's secretary about 3 autograph signings they were to attend. With it being only days away, Fiona reached out to Kate and Marcy to see if either of them would mind taking Ori. If not them, then surely either of her brothers or her parents. She lucked out, though. Marceline and Kate both responded back, and in the end, Ori was left with the girls while Fiona watched Marcy's house fade into the distance. This was her first autograph signing, and Fiona was nervous. For what, she didn't know. But the one thing she was sure of was the fact that all this prep work was giving her anxiety one heck of a boost. This never happened at concerts. Are we doing anything with her hair? I thought it was already done. How could this be done? The hairdresser said, his voice aghast. It's too wild. Maybe we should straighten it? You bring a straightening iron to her hair and you'll be doing that for hours. We don't have the time. And I don't have the patience, Fiona said in annoyance. My hair isn't wild, it's curly, and if you try to brush out my hair, you're going to make it way worse. She now pushed the brush away. Can you make can you make your hair look neat? He asked, handing her a comb. Fiona took it with a skeptical look before tossing it over her shoulder. I'd prefer looking good over being neat. That's not what we asked. Mr. Litch was very specific when describing your look. I don't care what he wants, it's my body, she snapped. Now a hand came down on her shoulder, squeezing it tightly, sending a tingle of fear down her spine. Your body that I own. Don't forget that, Fiona, Lick said, walking from the room, leaving her in a muted silence. All right, let's see what we can do with this. With some help and following Fiona's direction, the stylist and Fiona were able to agree on a hairstyle that suited her hair type. Moments after they'd finished, the door slammed open. A gentleman suited up in purple with the thinnest mustache Fiona had ever seen walked in carrying clothing bags. I'm Lucas Pierce. I'm the head of costume and makeup. You, makeup girl, stay. Everyone else, get the hell out, he said, slowly walking around Fiona, who sat in the chair still. May I? He asked, Fiona nodding, unsure of what was going to happen next. Gently he tilted her chin up, examining her face. Darken the liner around the eyes, give them more smoke. We want her eyes to pop. And clean up those brows, he said, his voice sharp as the woman began working on her again. You're beautiful, but you're more girl next door rather than rock and roll sex goddess. But we'll work on that. We'll work on that, he said, now checking the finished result. I like it, but I feel like the outfit will definitely make the look, he said, handing her a garment bag. Go put this on and come back out. Why am I wearing makeup? Ignitus asked as he sat on the couch next to Mo. Marshall was still in the chair as they worked on his hair. It's not the first time you've worn makeup, Egg. Yeah, but then it was a necessity so I wouldn't starve. Emma's face was our bread and butter for a minute. It's for the flash of the cameras, and so you don't look washed out, the hairstylist said, allowing Marshall to get up from the seat. The sudden sound of excited screaming caught their attention as Ash quickly hurried into the room. Guys, that was freaking wild. What was? Mo asked, watching Ash look back towards the door he'd come from. When they see us, they scream, he said in a conspiratorial voice, watching Moko scoff. What? Ash walked over, grabbing Mo's arm. Tugging him towards the door, he pushed him through it. The moment Mo passed through the threshold, the chorus of screams met his ears, and he was quick to jump back. The fans were screaming again the moment he poked his head back around the corner. Okay, this is kind of cool, Mo said with a grin, watching Marshall and FP show a look. Again, Ash poked his head out, listening to the chorus of screams. Mo poked his head out as well, the screams only growing louder. Shaking his head and with a shrug, Ignitus joined them. Yeah. He too poked his head out, staring wide-eyed as the chorus of screaming intensified. Turning, he grinned at Marshall, who finally gave in, joining them at the door. The screams were deafening. Looking around, Marshall saw no sign of Fiona inside. He wondered what was taking her so long. She could do nothing but stare in shock at the outfit Lucas had given her. There was just so little of it. I'm not wearing this, Fiona said stubbornly as she folded her arms across her chest. Everyone else is wearing the clothing provided. If you can tell me right now and swear on everything you love that the boys are also required to wear it, she said, now holding up the 3 skimpy articles of clothing. Booty shorts, a torn tube top, and a full fishnet. No. Booty shorts, a torn tube top, and a full fishnet bodysuit. Then I'll wear them, Fiona said acidly. But since you can't, I'm not. Oh my god, please just stop being unreasonable and wear the damn clothes, Lucas said, sounding more than frustrated. Make me, she growled, glaring at him. They sat there glowering at each other until Fiona sighed, finally looking away. Please, I'm not comfortable wearing that, she whispered, looking up at him. Fiona watched as he scowled, eventually sighing. With what's given for your outfit, what would make you feel more comfortable? He asked gently. It just shows so much skin. What if we had another layer of tights? Solid black ones that we'll put holes in. That way we get a peekaboo effect with the fishnets. It increases the sex appeal while appeasing your conservative nature, he said, coming back out with a second pair of tights and handing them over. Just try out the look and we'll tweak it so you're comfortable, okay? He asked. Fiona nodded, taking the tights. In the dressing room, she changed, looking at the outfit in the mirror. It's not that it looked bad, it just didn't feel like her. She walked from the dressing room. Fiona was quick to begin circling her, nodding his head. The added layer of the solid tights did help to make her feel better, at least until he knelt down and began ripping them. Marshall knew the moment Fiona was arriving. He could hear the click of the high heels on the hard floor. The sounds of the fans had turned from cheering to wolf whistles and cat calls. The louder the screams grew, the faster the heels clicked. Fiona entered the room looking flushed as she stared at the floor. She didn't want to make eye contact with a single one of them. She just felt so embarrassed and exposed. Marshall looked up the moment she'd entered the room and couldn't help but stare. Fiona had always been beautiful, but this transition was something else. She looked deliciously bad in such a good way. The way she was carrying herself, though, told a completely different story. It was obvious she was uncomfortable, both with how she was dressed and the attention she'd gotten from it. Hey, come here, Marshall said, standing, making his way over to her. You look crazy hot, he said, taking her into his arms. I don't feel attractive. I feel like a piece of meat, she said, tugging her shorts down. I don't feel comfortable like this. Marshall pulled off the jacket given to him, immediately offering it to her. Thank you. No problem. You okay? He asked, resting his hand on her shoulder. The moment she flinched, Marshall knew something was off. What happened, Fee? I'm fine. Are you sure? Even though she nodded, Marshall still felt like something was wrong. Grabbing both sides of the jacket, Marshall zipped it shut. Leaning forward, he kissed Fiona's forehead. There's a couch over here. Let's sit. Marshall led them over, holding Fiona against him. He could feel her slow, controlled breaths. You good? Mo asked, and looking up, Marshall could see the rest of the guys looking at them. Yeah, we just need some space. Gotcha. Gotcha. The guys gave them some room, and humming softly, Marshall took her hand. I don't know what's going on, but I'm here. I'm just a little spacey, Fiona said softly. Marshall, though, wasn't buying it. Good. I can see that. You weren't like this a little bit ago. What happened? Don't forget, Simone said you have to feel and acknowledge your emotions, Fiona. I know. He scared me, and I feel stupid about it, okay? She said in utter embarrassment, still leaning against Marshall. What happened? His voice was coaxing and gentle. Fiona sighed. They had to wear the black tights to give the look they wanted. I didn't expect it to, but hearing and feeling him do that freaked me out. They had to fix my makeup because I cried like a damn baby about it already. You know that's okay, right? To get freaked out like that. But I'm tired of it. I'm not myself, Marsh. I haven't been myself. Ah, no, no. I haven't been myself in years, it feels like. It's like every traumatic experience I've ever had took a part of me when it happened. I never used to be this scared, worried person. Now that's who I am all the time. With who you're working for, you have every reason to be nervous, Fiona, but I do understand what you're saying. I just want to go back to who I was before, she said softly. Look at it this way. You know who you were and you know who you are. You know what you're capable of. Be who you need to be in the moment and know that I'm here with you and for you, he said, taking her hand and squeezing it. Fiona smiled, looking up at him. Thanks, Marsh. It does make me feel better knowing you're here for me. A knocking came to the door, and a man with a clipboard walked in. All right, guys, this is a simple autograph and photo session. Your fans will come through the line with the photos we've had printed from your previous contract concerts. You will sign them, and if they have paid for the VIP package, they get into another line and get a photo with the band. Any questions? The group all exchanged glances, but nobody said a thing. Great, if you'll follow me. Great, if you'll follow me. Turning, he walked from the room, the guys trailing after him, the chorus of screams echoing from the hallway. Marshall stood, Fiona on his arm, as they followed after the rest of the band. The sounds of the screams were deafening. If they'd made it to a waiting area, and Fiona watched as people scrambled around setting up last-minute things. They rushed toward their seats at the table, but the moment Lucas spotted Fiona, he'd nearly had a coronary. What on earth are you wearing? This isn't what we agreed on at all. It seemed the moment Lucas had spoken, Lich had materialized behind them. Is there a problem? None, sir. She was just taking that jacket off, right? He said, giving Fiona a sharp look as she unzipped the jacket, shouldering it off. She's not comfortable. Marshall, you're in no position to make any kind of demands. Lick snapped, taking the jacket from her and walking off. Geez, he's such a prick, Lucas said, bustling around Fiona again, making sure she was presentable. Marshall and Fiona exchanged glances while he did. All right, doll, you're all set. We'll touch you up between sessions or as needed, okay? Thank you. No problem. I promise not everyone who works here is miserable, he said, motioning the pair towards the table. The moment they sat down and the band was introduced, the hours began blowing by. They sat there signing photos, sliding them down to the next person. Fiona's hand was cramping, but she ignored it. Honestly, the smiling fans and their excitement made it so much more bearable, especially the kids. The first break was brief, and when they came back, it was time for the photographs. Fiona had expected it after Lucas's rant, but was a little more than surprised that so many female fans asked for her not to be in their photo. Instead, she just sat there and smiled, listening to Lucas's snide comments about each fan that requested she leave. Fiona couldn't lie. She was actually enjoying his cattiness. She'd already been asked by multiple male fans for a photo just with her. She obliged all of them, knowing it would be what Lich wanted. Again, as she was called forward, Fiona stood in front of the screen. As the fan who with the fan who brought his arm around her waist. This time, though, as the flash went off, Fiona felt the hand slide down from her hip and settle on her butt, giving it a squeeze. At this, she jumped startled, and the photograph sighed. We have to retake the picture. To her surprise, though, as the man's arm slipped around her again, he was pulled away by security. So we have a very strict no touching policy. Thank God. All right. Fiona watched stunned as the man was brought away. Glancing over at the guys, she saw they were just as surprised. They hadn't known what happened. She had two more solo shots with fans before she sat back down. Feeling a gentle touch on her shoulder, she looked over, spotting Lucas, who smiled knowingly at her. I got you, boo-boo. The rush of appreciation Fiona felt had been immense. Thank you. No problem. Let's touch you up before the next shot, he said, dusting her face with some setting powder. We'll have to get the guys back here and give them a quick once-over, too, he said, motioning for the photographer. After the most recent picture, they were called to the back, and the moment he'd gotten out of public view, Marshall pulled Fiona aside. Are you okay? What happened back there? That guy grabbed my butt, but Lucas had it handled. Lucas? The one in purple. Tiny mustache man? Marshall asked, earning Fiona's scowl. Yes. Stop being a brat, Marsh. She fixed it. Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like this is one of those things that's just going to keep happening. Sorry, that beep came from my computer. It beeps whenever I plug in or unplug the charger. Fiona said as a purple blue approached, grabbing Marshall. You've got to put your foot down, Fiona. Speak up. Let them have it in the most professional way you can. Then let security do the rest. Marshall, you're up, Lucas said, now pulling him away towards the chair. The rest of the afternoon passed in a whirlwind. The second autograph and photo shoot session was several towns over and took much longer. Their third and final shoot was the next state over. Oh my gosh. Fiona was ready in record time, having fallen into an easy routine with Lucas. Seeing that she had an extra 15 minutes to spare, she decided to call Marcy to check in on Aria and stepped outside. I'm exhausted just reading this. Like, this sounds exhausting. Mm. Hey, Fee, how's everything? I was actually calling to ask you that. Things here are okay. We had a small issue earlier, but it hasn't happened again. How's the baby? She's great. We're having a ball watching her with Cake. They're so cute together. Fiona leaned against the wall, smiling as Marceline filled her in on Ari's day. She could hear the baby laughing and the sound of splashing water. They sat there talking for a few minutes, and as they did, Fiona felt the knot of worry in her chest listen. She hadn't even realized how worried she'd been about the baby, but hearing that everything was going well, she had been a soothing balm to her nerves. Checking the time, Fiona let her go. She knew that the next set She knew the next set would be starting soon. Slipping her phone into her pocket, she walked back into the building and down the hall. She hadn't been back inside for more than a few minutes when security descended upon her. What? Startled didn't even begin to cover it as she was grabbed and pulled down the hallway, barely able to keep up. Damn it! Let go of me! Fucking, not again. Are you kidding? Finally, she was brought to a room and shoved inside so quickly she stumbled, falling to her knees, her ankle twisting painfully. "What were you told about being present, Fiona?" Lich's voice said immediately, snapping her to attention. He was sitting on one of the couches looking furious. "I had the extra time. I was checking on the baby. You know I could care less for your excuses. Time is money," he said scathingly. Standing, he looked down on her. "If your daughter is such a distraction for you, I could have that problem handled." The icy chill of fear that spread through Fiona's chest washed out everything she was feeling, the nervousness, the frustration, the pain in her ankle and knees. All of it was forgotten the moment those words came from his lips. "No, please no." "So you're aware of what you have to lose, and yet you chose willingly to put it at risk?" he said, tisking. "What terrible parenting." Walking to the door, he opened it, stepping out into the hall. He had paused in front of the man who grabbed her earlier. um, Punish her. Do leave her pretty, though. They're paying for her photo after all, he said, staring Fiona down with a smile before walking from the room. Ugh, this shit needs to stop. Cake. Wait, what? Okay, it's one of those like in betweens where it transfers over to another character and it says cake. This is the first time I've seen her name. It had taken time to get used to the new kitten, naked and constantly yowling. As the time passed, she grew, still small, but learning. The kitten was always learning, learning to reach, to touch and move, sleep and play. It was a delicate balance of work and play. She took up all of Fiona's time now, and rightfully so, as the kitten was hers. Oh, I think this is a blast from the past with Cake as a kitten, hopping up on the seat, dashing through the kitchen, Cake weaved between the table and chair legs. Hopping up on the seat, she watched with attentive eyes. Arya was quick to follow, crawling after Cake. Oh, no, but paused, looking around, unable to find her. Finally, her eyes trained onto the familiar fluffy tail. Just as she started over, she was picked up and lifted away. "There you are. You were gone in a blink, little girl," Marceline said, carrying her back into the living room. "You're getting fast. So, have you thought So have you thought about having kids?" Marceline asked Kate with a grin. "I get my fill with Ari. Besides, Modestus and I don't need a baby right now anyways. Though I do have to say, a child from us would be gorgeous. I want a solid, committed relationship before I go having any kids." "That's smart. Iggy and I are doing the same thing. We want them, but we want to be solid first." So not to poke sore wounds, but Mo told me what happened. "How are you doing?" Kate asked as Marceline sighed. "Not too bad. I mean, I'm definitely not happy about it. But it's gotten easier. I had to work some things out with my dad about my job, but now I'm able to go in to close things out with my clients. I go into the office next week. That's just in time for the tour's launch. "I know. Are you going?" Marcy asked, looking at Kate, who nodded. "Absolutely yes. Modestus wouldn't hear anything otherwise. He's even offered to pay my way. I don't want him to. I can cover myself, but he's doing it anyways," she said with a shrug. "Apparently they're renting a bus, but I don't think it'll hold all of us." "True. Also, what am I going to do about Ash and Ig? There's no way he's going to be okay with the three of us squished on a bus like that," she said, bouncing Ari on her lap, listening as she giggled. "That's a conundrum I haven't thought of. Why not talk to Ig and see what he says?" Kate said with a shrug. "You'll never really know how he feels until you ask him." "Why is everyone telling me to talk to my husband? More importantly, why are you all right?" she asked, laughing. Um, what? Why are you all right? Yeah, I must have missed something. Okay. Anyway, the kitten had followed her again. She loved Fiona's kitten, but she was rough. She was rough, but still so very small. Too small to climb the stairs, perhaps. Hopping up a few steps, Cake sat watching Ori, hoping for a reprieve. Oh. Oh, Cake is seeing the baby as a kitten. Okay, got it. That explains a lot. She paused at the bottom of the stairs looking up at her. They sat staring at each other. To her surprise, Ori became sorry guys. God dang it. Mm. Alright. Uh, she paused at the bottom of the stairs looking up at her. They sat staring at each other. To her surprise, Ari began trying to climb the stairs. She was unsure in her movements, but sure in her goal. Cake hopped down the stairs, batting at Ari's hands. Still, she continued on, now up the first step. Hopping back up the stairs, she arched her back, looking as scary as she could. Ari drew back, letting out a startled cry. "Oh, honey, what happened? Did the kitty scare you?" Kate asked, lifting Ari. Okay, did you just find her on the stairs? Just the first one. Looks like she scared Kate good because she's got all sorts of Halloween cat going on, she said, smoothing down Kate's fluffy fur. That's not good. We need to let them know she's getting big enough to need a gate, Marceline said, now climbing down the stairs, Kate following. She vaguely recalled seeing a gate at the baby shower. How's it going with them? Fiona said they're crazy busy, which would explain the radio silence, Marcy said, now looking through the baby's room. Opening the closet door, she found the gate. It was still in the box, leaning against the emergency room door. She grabbed it, shutting the closet door behind her. Hopefully everything is going well. Mm. Whoa. Okay, that was weird. Marshall sat at the table, drumming his fingers. They were making a big deal out of nothing, and they'd shifted the timetable forward to boot. If anything, with how busy they'd been kept, Fiona probably snuck off to the bathroom or something. He glanced around, eventually spotting her walking with Lucas toward the table. He couldn't help feeling the spike of jealousy at how closely they were walking together. Fiona sat down slowly as the people began bustling around them. Um, okay. Uh, What took you? My makeup needed to be redone, she said softly. This, though, Marcia wasn't buying. She'd relaxed so much throughout the day, and now she was all the way back to square one. Fiona, look at me, Marshall said softly. Fiona shook her head, and Marshall decided he wasn't going to force it. Fiona always talked to him when she was ready. Um, Reaching over, he took her hand, lacing his fingers with hers. He squeezed her hand, feeling as Fiona squeezed his back. They began signing photos, and as the night wore on, Marshall lost count of the amount of times Fiona's hand had reached for his, squeezing it tightly. Once the photos began, though, Marshall realized something was physically wrong with her. From what he could see, she was putting much less weight. Sorry, guys. Wait, hang on. From what from what he could see, she was putting much less pressure on her right side as the time slipped by. Okay. Once their break was called, they were led to a back room. The first thing Marshall did once they'd settled on the couch, but was grab Fiona's legs, pulling them across his lap. He was going he was going to try to figure out what hap he was going to figure out what was wrong one way or another. He began untying the laces on her heels, but stopped when he noticed the ace bandages. Fee, what happened? You've been more than evasive today, so I knew something happened, Marshall said quietly so only Fiona could hear him. All I did was call to check on the baby. That's all I wanted to do, Fiona said, letting out a sigh. Lucas said I had time. We got done early. Do you think there's any possi- Do you think there's any possibility he set you up to get in trouble with Lich? Fiona was genuinely surprised to hear this from him. Absolutely not. Marsh, he was the one who wrapped my ankle for me. Fiona, fixing us up is his job. I still don't think he had anything to do with this. It was all Lich. All I did was call and talk to Marcy. When I came back in, security grabbed me and dragged me into a room where Lich chewed me out. That was how I twisted my ankle. Are you going to be able to work like this? I don't have a choice. You know I don't, she said, giving him a level look. Knowing she had a point, Marshall began massaging her legs, Fiona wincing. The day he knew had been a success. There was nothing left but to finish up the last wave of photos. Then they would be done. Much to Marshall's displeasure, Lucas entered the room, motioning for Fiona to follow. She knew Marshall was reluctant to release her, yet he did anyways, allowing her to stand. You okay, baby? He asked, his hand resting on her hip as Fiona winced. I'm good enough, she said, walking from the room. Once she was in the hall, Lucas smiled, and Fiona couldn't help but feel a small tinge of worry. What if Marshall was right? How are you doing? Any better? He asked as they entered wardrobe and makeup. No, I think I have to have it checked, I think I need to have it checked, honestly. It hurts to walk and it's getting worse. I'll see what's in wardrobe. Maybe I can find a lower pair of shoes. I think it's going to get worse if we do that. At this point, I'm pretty sure if the shoe comes off, it'll swell up, and I won't be able to get it or anything else back on. Fiona said, now sitting in the makeup chair. Well, the soft little thing I took you for at the beginning of the day was obviously wrong. You've got hella nerve. I like it. Lucas said, wiping the makeup from her face and redoing it. You know, I was planning on putting my I was planning on putting my 2 weeks in, no lie. But I'm willing to stick around for as long as you're here, he said, spritzing and fluffing her hair. With your looks and my artistic flair, honey, I'll sculpt you into a goddess perfection. With a cloud of hairspray, Lucas spun the chair, and Fiona stared impressed. That looks Amazing? Don't I know it? I've outdone myself. I also feel like this won't be the last time I say this about you, he said in a sing-song voice. A knock came, and again the man with the clipboard opened the door. What's your ETA? We just finished. We'll be heading down as soon as the setting powder sets. It'll take 10 minutes. With a nod, the man walked from the room. That seems like a long time for it to start working. That's because I lied. The most it takes is 5, Lucas said with a shrug of his shoulder. I haven't had a client that's felt like a gal pal in years. You really have no idea how much I'm loving you. So, while we have the time, please dish. How did you and Marshall meet? Marshall continued waiting for Fiona until they were motioned towards the door by the man with the clipboard. Where's Fiona? Makeup. Makeup, the man said, leading them down the hall. Okay, can you set up a spot for Fiona to sit with her foot elevated? She twisted her ankle. Not a problem. We'll set something up for her. Great. If it's possible, see if we can split the line. If we can do an off pattern for her, letting her rest and stand, she should be able to finish the night on a solid note. Again, the man nodded and turning, he walked back towards the break room, spotting Fiona and Lucas. Ugh, Lucas. He was just all over her. Fiona, though, was still limping, totally not being jealous at all. Marcia walked over, quickly scooping her up, bridal style. Sorry, my fiance really should be sitting, Marshall said, staring at the man who'd gasped as they walked off in the other direction. Spoilers! Lucas said, his hands over his mouth in shock. Ah, Marsh, I hadn't made it that far yet. Fiona said, sounding bummed. Waving bye to Lucas over Marshall's shoulder, she was carried off. Marshall seemed to be in the middle of a huff. When they got to the photo area, he settled her into a chair with an ice pack. Well, hot damn, Marsh was jelly. Marsh was jelly, Ignatius said, earning Fiona's glance. To her surprise, Marshall was sour-faced and blushing. You can totally forget about a ride home. Rude. Now she laughed. The thought of Marshall jealous was more than amusing to her. She thought that if anything, he would get annoyed over male fans touching her for photos. Never did she imagine his jealousy would stem from their makeup lead. Marsh, were you really jealous? Fiona asked in a teasing voice, unable to stop smoking. No? His answer was too fast and too rushed to be anything but a lie, and Fiona knew it. With a laugh, she looked away, watching as the fans were being lined up. The stage manager walked over. Fiona, because of your injury, we're separating the line into group photos and singular photos for yourself. We'll try and get a good chunk at a time of yours done so you can rest. Between shots, let us know how you're doing and if we need to switch off. Sound good? It does actually, Fiona said in surprise. Maybe Lucas was right. Maybe everyone else was an actual normal human instead of a corrupt sociopath like Lich and the security team. Again, they were introduced and the photos began. Fiona much more preferring this round of photos being taken. Now that they were more staggered and she was getting more chance to rest, the pain in her ankle didn't quite hurt so bad. Once the fans realized she was hurt, though, it had turned into more than an amusing spectacle. Spectacle? She'd made the tiniest noise of pain, and immediately the man offered to hold her for the photo. Fiona looked questioningly at the photographer who nodded, so she agreed. Thus she was passed from fan to fan, each who seemed more excited to do so. Marshall, she noticed, didn't seem all too pleased by this photographic development. The guys she could see were ragging on him about it, and were not letting it go either. She was set down by another fan who gave her a quick hug, and looking over, she was surprised to see Marshall next to her and the boys approaching. Time for a few group photos, he said, scooping her up in his arms. Jealousy's an interesting shade on you, Marshall, Fiona said, giving his cheek a kiss. After several more photos, Fiona was allowed to sit. She hadn't been seated for a moment when Lucas popped up beside her, his hands already working her hair. So Marshall's jealous? Fiona said, giggling. It's more than obvious. You learn a lot about people in their moments of jealousy, so keep a sharp eye. He's jealous of you, Fiona said, catching his eye in the mirror. Was he now? Well, rightfully so, Lucas said as he continued working on Fiona's hair. Catching her surprised look in the mirror, he grinned. Did you think I was gay? Kind of. No, sweetheart, I enjoy all flavors. I'm pansexual. My attractional, emotional, physical, romantic, and all else is to people of all genders and sexualities. I'm more of a love what's on the inside kind of guy. Besides, why would I limit myself when there's so much love to be shared? He asked as she smiled back at him. That's an interesting point of view. Fiona, it may or may not be your cup of tea, and that's fine. Just remember that sexuality isn't a set in stone thing. There's fluidity to it and varying factors. What it boils down to is the fact that once I find myself attracted to a person, it's for who they are on the inside. Though a cutie will catch my eye, he said, turning the chair as he began working on her makeup once again. Long story short, if you were single and I interested, Marsha would absolutely have a reason to be worried. But you're not, I'm not. No offense, but you're practically a baby, so he should have no reason to worry. So tell me more about the band. The one who did catch my eye, though, was the short cutie with the dark wavy hair and melancholy eyes. Who, Melcro? Yes, what's his story? Is he seeing anyone? He's been dating Kate for a few years now. Ugh, I'll bet she's gorgeous, he said, sounding disappointed. She's very pretty. Called it. Again, Fiona found herself smiling. It was so easy to let her guard down with Lucas. He seemed extremely genuine and so very nice. They continued talking about the guys, and Fiona kept Marshall's warning in the back of her mind. While she wasn't too worried about letting anything slip, she was being cautious about what she told Lucas. After several dozen more shoots, the event had officially ended, and Fiona had never been more relieved. She genuinely couldn't wait to go home and hold Ari. They were led back to the changing rooms where Fiona was dreading taking her shoe off. Her ankle was absolutely throbbing. Sitting on the chair in the dressing room, she worked the laces loose. Just the action of taking the shoe off made her eyes tear up in pain. You doing okay in there? Everyone's already done and waiting for you, Lucas said from the other side of the door. Can you get Marcia, please? I need help. Sure thing, I'll be right back. Marshall felt like he'd been waiting forever. He couldn't wait to go home. Both Mo and Ignitus were outside on the phone, and Ash stood across the hall from him, leaning against the wall. Looking over, he spotted the familiar purple figure and scowled. Why did this man need to be everywhere? Lucas paused in front of him, making a face. Wow, Fiona thought you were only jealous, but you just plain don't like me, do you? He asked, crossing his arms. Let's just say I take a while to warm up to someone, Marshall said simply. You're here for a reason? Fiona needs help, he said, turning, motioning for Marshall to follow, which he did. We talked quite a bit, she and I. Did you now? Yes, the person she described is completely different from the one I'm talking with. Jealousy is an ugly color on you. Hearing this, Marshall glared mutinously at him. He couldn't lie. This feeling of jealousy was overwhelming, and it wasn't something he was used to. It wasn't just Lucas, though, it was all of them. Everywhere he looked, guys were drooling over her, and that he could stand. It was the touching. That, though, wasn't the sole reason for Marshall's dislike of the man before him. Taking several quick steps ahead, Marshall cut him off, glaring at him. You know, this isn't solely jealousy on my end. She comes from you the first time and she's been crying. She came from being with you the second time and she's been physically hurt. Now she needs help and here you are. Forgive me if I'm a little suspicious. He growled, pushing himself away from Lucas, towards the dressing rooms he knew she'd been using. By the time she heard Marshall's familiar steps, Fiona was pulling her sweatshirt on with a wince. If he saw what Lucia's security did, there would be huge problems. She'd hide it until they got home. All she wanted was to go home. She could go home and sink into the tub and soak all of her aches away. She definitely wouldn't be making any calls while working anymore. Marshall knocked on the door, snapping her from her thoughts. Door's open. You okay? Your makeup buddy grabbed me. No, I already tried and I can't put pressure on my ankle. That's okay. I'll carry you out and we'll get it checked. On a moving scale, how bad does it hurt? He asked, checking her ankle. It was swollen and bruised black and blue. He knew that wasn't a good sign. It's a solid 7 when I'm just sitting, and Fiona let out a sharp yelp of pain when Marshall apologized. He began rewrapping her ankle, much to Fiona's protests. That's Lucas's rat, Marsh. Well, since he lent it to you, I'm sure he won't mind if you keep it for a little longer, Fee. Yeah, I really don't mind. Keep it as long as you need to. I can get plenty more, the voice from behind him said. Thanks, Marshall said flatly. No problem, Lucas choked. I'm just gonna kill you, Fiona, Marshall said, lifting her, barely giving her time to hold on. She was in his arms, and Marshall was on his way out the door faster than Fiona could imagine. He was done. Done with people. Done with this day. All of it. He knew he was being an ass, but he didn't care. Fiona sat quietly in his arms, and Marshall knew she'd be stewing. They passed Ash in the hallway, Marshall motioning with his head to follow, which Ash did. So we've got Princess Fiona. Too fancy to walk? He asked jokingly, falling into step with Marshall's quick pace. As always, duh. She's either got a really she's either got a really bad sprain or she broke her ankle, Marshall said, adjusting his grip. Well shit, how'd you do that? Did you not see the heels they put me in? I was lucky I could walk, Fiona said, shrugging as best she could. They passed through the double doors and into the parking lot. Feeling the cold night air, Fiona couldn't help but smile as she leaned her head against Marshall's shoulder. "Mm, freedom," she said softly, feeling as he began to relax. He stopped at the car, sitting her on the trunk. Fiona watched as Mo and Egg got out of Mo's car, a cloud of smoke following them. Whatever they'd been laughing about had to be good, because Mo looked like he'd genuinely been crying. What the hell took you guys so long? I'm broken, Fiona said simply. Smelling the smoke wafting over, she sighed. She was about to be the buzzkill and she knew it. Ig? Ig? He looked over and she motioned for him. Marshall and Ash were talking with Mo, so she figured would be the best time. What's up, girlie? You want to hit it too? It might help your ankle, he offered. Honestly, Fiona considered it too. She did have a good bit of frozen milk in the freezer now. Shaking her head, she sighed. No thanks. The week-long wait to feed Ari would kill me. I did want to ask you though, is it okay that you're smoking that? It's not going to mess with your sobriety or anything. Nah, a bit of bud every now and again is all I need. I've never had a problem smoking, he said, shaking his head. But thanks for checking on me. Thanks for checking in on me, girlie. I appreciate it. You doing okay? You've been a yo-yo today. Yeah, I know. I've had a bit of a day. You want to talk about it? He asked, leaning against the car. You probably won't, but I'm not a good friend if I don't at least ask. You're a great friend, Iggy. You're one of my best friends, and I genuinely love you to pieces. Same with all the guys. But I'm the favorite, right? Was that even a question? She asked, laughing. You are doing okay, right, Egg? I am. I'm great, actually, he said with a grin. Also, not just because I'm high as hell right now. That's just a bonus. Hell, I'd give the other half of this to Emma. She'll appreciate blood this good, he said, patting his pocket. Where'd you get that anyways? One of the chicks doing the second photo session. I'll take 3 joints, yes ma'am. You guys ready to go? Marshall asked, Fiona nodding as she scooted off the trunk, landing on her good foot. I can't wait to see our baby, Fiona said, leaning on Marshall as he helped her into the car. Same. She's probably going to be asleep by the time we get home. I know. I hate not being the one to put her to bed, she said softly. But, Marshall said, catching her attention, we're working to provide everything she'll need, so it's worth it. I know it's worth it, but I'm scared, Marshall. I don't want anything to happen to Ari. At least when she's with me, I know everything's okay. I know, but that's not how you want to be thinking. You know the crappy things happening around you. You don't have to remind yourself of them. Remind yourself of what you know to be good and true. Ari is safe with Marcy and Kate. Personally, I'd feel for the person who thinks it's a good idea to mess with Ari when she's being watched by those two. Dude, are you kidding? Marcy, dude, are you kidding? Marcy may be a slender little thing, but she'll kill someone for Ari, Ignatius said from the back seat. Don't worry about her. Worry about the people dumb enough to try her, he said as Fiona nodded. They both had solid points. The drive home took the better part of an hour, and pulling up, Fiona wasn't surprised to see Mo's car already parked out front. I swear to God, Ash better be in that car, Ig said, leaving them in the car as Marshall parked. It's always something with them, he said with a sigh as he opened his door. Hey, I'll take predictable chaos any day. Marshall helped Fiona from the car, catching her as she stumbled with a sharp gasp. Together they made their way into the house, Marshall holding the door open as Fiona limped through. She could hear them talking in the living room. Putting her keys on the rack, Fiona pulled her sweatshirt over her head, feeling her shirt feeling her shirt lift, exposing her back. This was not how she wanted him to find out. Immediately, she heard Marshall sharp and take a breath as the hem of her shirt slid down her back. What the hell happened to your back? Marshall didn't try to hide the horror in his voice. He couldn't. Sliding her shirt back up, his eyes took in the crisscrossing welts that littered her back. Oh my God, what happened to her? Kate asked, staring in shock at Fiona's back. Fiona, Lich told me that if Ari was such a distraction to me, that he could have her handled. He told a security guy to keep me pretty for the photos, but to punish me. Two other guys grabbed my arms and held me down. The first one used his belt to hit me. If I had clothes covering he hit me there. I just want to take a shower, see my baby, and go to bed now, please, she said in a strained voice. Let's go then, Marshall said softly. This time he didn't even ask. Instead, he scooped her right up. Passing the group who converged into the doorway, he walked into the bathroom, kicking the door shut behind him. Outside of Arya, nobody outside that door mattered right now. Even then, if she needed anything, there were 5 capable adults that could take care of her. Gently, he set Fiona on the floor, his hands holding her steady. He peeled her shirt off, taking in the welts on her stomach. His fingers skimmed across from them as she leaned against him. I'm gonna undo your jeans, okay? I'll pull them down, then you can sit and I'll take them off. Okay. Together they worked. Slowly they worked together to get her undressed, and once she was, he filled the tub, helping her get settled into the warm water. Grabbing Ari's bath cup, Marshall began washing her hair, rinsing it clean of the shampoo and conditioner. He tied it up. How's your ankle? It still hurts, she said, watching as he grabbed the bottle of pain relievers. How many do you want? I don't know, 12? Funny, Marshall said, handing her two. She popped them into her mouth, swallowing them dry, making Marshall cringe. Do you want some water? Nah, they went down. I do want to ice my ankle, though. I feel like it has a pulse. Okay, I'll get you all set up, Marshall said, busying around. Bleh. He helped her get up and out of the water, wrapping her in a towel. Um, Fiona sat on the edge of the tub, watching as Marshall left the room, returning with pajamas and a blue bottle. Lean forward and lower the towel some, he said as he began gently rubbing the cold blue gel onto the welts. That feels really nice. Hopefully you won't feel much in a few minutes. This has lidocaine in it, so it should numb those up some. He continued working the gel into her skin, though. He paused. Fiona could feel his fingers tracing along the harsh lines across her stomach. Why didn't you tell me? He whispered. There's nothing you could have done about it, and there's nothing we can do. Why was I going to make you upset and put you in a bad mood? Lich would know what upset you, and then he would win. Marshall sighed, knowing she had a valid point. If I hadn't seen it, would you have told me? I was planning on telling you when we got home. I just didn't want to make things worse while we were there. I can respect that, he said softly. Is there anything else you need before we go upstairs? He said, offering her the pajamas, watching as Fiona pulled the t-shirt on. No, I just want to see Ari, Fiona said, lifting her feet so Marshall could slip her bottoms on. Nodding, he carried her from the bathroom to their bedroom. As they passed through the living room, she caught a brief glance of them all talking quietly amongst themselves. She had no time to see anything else as Marshall made his way up the stairs. Their visit to Ari was brief. Once she had laid eyes on her daughter sleeping soundly in her crib, she was ready to lay down. Uh, Marshall, though, instead of laying her on the bed like she thought he would, climbed in the bed with her. Her head hit the pillow, and his lips met hers only moments later. Fiona, I'm so sorry. I know, she said, curling into him, closing her eyes. Marshall kissed the top of her head, his arms loose around her body. Feeling his hand against hers, Fiona slipped her fingers between his, squeezing his hand tightly. Can I get that ice pack? Fiona asked softly. Of course, Marshall breathed. Um, mm, um, mm. Fiona slipped, uh, uh, kissing her forehead again. He climbed from the bed. To his surprise, he met Ignitus on the stairs. Marcy set me up with this, he said, handing Marshall the towel-wrapped ice pack. We're all gonna head out. Mo and I filled the girls in. Thanks. We really need to sit down and figure some things out band-wise. I know, we can't just let these things go with Lich. I just wish I knew what we could do. Me too. We'll figure it out. I know we will. I'll lock the door on the way out. Thanks, man. No problem. Tell Girlie to have a good night, Ig said, making his way down the stairs and out the door. Marshall watched them leave, and after a last check on Ari, he returned to the bedroom. Everyone just... Marshall trailed off, listening to Fiona's soft breaths. She was out for the count. Lifting her foot, he slid the ice pack beneath it and climbed back into bed. He wasn't sure what he was going to do to Lich for this, but this was war. Okay. Chapter 112 Heart versus Mind. Marceline opened the door to her office. Ignitus following behind her, closing and locking the door as Hudson requested. Everything was as she'd left it when she was sent home. She began circling the room, grabbing her odds and ends, tossing them into the box on her desk. They were here an hour early and had been briefed by her father already. Security had been notified and put on standby for today as well. After what felt like forever, Marceline finished, leaning against her desk with a bummed sigh. Moments later, though, to her great surprise, she was lifted on top of it. Looking up, she was greeted with her husband's smile. Her hands rubbed along her thighs. His hands rubbed along her thighs suggestively, and immediately she felt the burn in her cheeks as she blushed. You know, today doesn't have to be all bad, Ig said softly, watching the blush on her cheeks slowly fade. It could be the day you finally hook up with that hot new security guard charged to protect you, Miss VP, he said with a flirty smirk, as her blush now deepened tremendously. His lips met hers for only the briefest of moments before there was a knock at the door. Quickly they separated, and to her surprise, Ignitus answered the door while she made herself presentable. Your first meeting is here. She looked at the clock. It was already 9. Clearing off her desk and digging out the right file, Marcy took a breath as she stood next to her desk. Okay, let them in. It had been nearly a week since their autograph session. The welts had faded some, and Fiona was finally able to bear some weight on her ankle. Marshall had brought her to the emergency room the next morning, and an x-ray confirmed that she had a hairline fracture. She'd been fitted with a boot and crutches and had been given a prescription for the pain. Fiona hated the crutches. She hated them more than anything. The one upside to crutches and the boot was how ridiculously attentive Marshall had become, and even that had lost its novelty. Once she'd gotten the crutches, Fiona flat out refused to be carried. Marshall responded by doting on her hand and foot. Anything she wanted, he was quick to get for her. All she got to do was sit on the couch with her foot propped up. All she wanted at this moment was to feed Ollie, but she was thoroughly annoyed with Marshall and his overbearing insistence to do everything for her. She couldn't even feed the baby. She needed to rest. Now, though, she'd finally had enough. Oh my God, Marshall, just give me Ollie! Fiona snapped, pushing herself to a good foot, her hands on her hips. Seeing the look on his face, though, she sighed, reaching for him. Marshall offered Ollie to her, but instead she reached for him. Pressing her forehead to his, she laced her free hand in his. Marsh, I'm sorry. I know you're only trying to help, but I just have a barely broken ankle. I can use everything else, so can you please chill out? She asked, Marshall sighing. I know, I'm being excessive, he said sheepishly. Only a lot a bit, she said, giving him a smile. Fiona, I really feel like this is all my fault. I'm sorry I'm driving you crazy. I forgive you, but for real, Marsh, you are driving me crazy, just not in the way I like, Fiona said with a laugh. Ollie reached for her and Fiona took her. And I'll bet you're hungry, she said in a sing-song voice, sitting back on the couch with the baby. Do we have any plans today? She asked, looking up at Marshall. None that I can think of. Good, I just want to relax, she said, closing her eyes. She felt as Marshall sat next to her on the couch, his arm resting across her shoulders. Just throwing it out there, I definitely know something we could do to help you relax, Marshall said with a smirk. Don't threaten me with a good time, Marshall, Fiona said, opening an eye to glance over at him. You know it's no threat, he said, grabbing her legs and pulling them across his lap. That is a genuine, bona fide Marshall promise. Marsh, I'm feeding the baby, she said, adjusting Ariano's shirt. I know, and she's got the right idea, he said, giving her a look, watching as Fiona blushed. Will you stop? Leaning forward, he paused, watching as her eyes flicked from his to his lips and back again. The moment he smoked, she flicked his ear. You're being a brat. Yes, I think we've established that I was born one, he said, still smoking. Um, Okay, how about I try and chill out some? I'd love that. Can we visit my parents today? I want to tell them about the tour. I know Ollie might have to stay with them when we're close to home. Yeah, we can totally do that. I'll text Jake to see if he and Lady have some free time too. I'd love to see them and the girls too. Or we can nap in the car. We can probably stay for dinner and eat Mom's cooking too, she said excitedly, practically drooling at the thought of her mother's cooking. I'll get them a call once Ollie's done. I'll call Finn too. Maybe we can have a family day. I like that plan. I'll start getting things ready, Marshall said, pushing himself off the couch. After the better part of an hour, they were on their way to her parents. Okay. Finn and Amber sat in the courtroom listening to the never-ending stream of cases. Finn knew this would take forever. He'd anticipated spending most of the day here. Amber, on the other hand, did not, and was drumming her fingers on her arm, waiting for the judge to call her grandfather's name. Today was the day. Today they would find out if Finn's idea would work. She was more than nervous, and feeling as Finn's hand slipped into hers, squeezing it tightly, she took a breath, slowly releasing it. Do you think this will work? I know I asked a million times already. I still think it has a good chance of reducing his sentence, Finn said carefully. He'd gotten a lot more careful in what he said to Ember lately in regards to today's court date. He didn't want to get her hopes up unnecessarily, but his own hopes were so high. Finn was so sure this would do something. He'd had Ember asked her papa various questions on her last visit, and everything she'd brought back was damn near pure gold. He'd taken anger management classes, he was part of the education program, and he went to weekly group meetings consistently throughout his sentencing. Next case on the appeals docket, Flint versus the state, the clerk magistrate said. Um, Emperor's head snapped towards the direction of the doors, watching as her papa was led out in a gray suit. Immediately, the proceedings began. Ember listening intently. She hated this. She understood so little of the legal jargon being said. Finn, though, understood damn near everything as they went through the proceedings from the previous case. He couldn't help but feel pure shock as they covered the details. Few of Lint's case had been solely built on the fact that he'd done this for Ember, and it had collapsed in his entirety because she hadn't been there to confirm or deny any of the allegations of abuse. To put it simply, because Aiden had sent Ember away the way he had, he'd prevented all forms of defense for his father from being played out. The worst part was that Finn had the feeling that him having done this was an intentional act. The amount of spite this man had never failed to surprise him. After almost 20 minutes of discussion back and forth between all parties, an hour-long recess was called. Her papa was brought to the back again, and Ember looked on in confusion as the people began filing out of the courtroom. "What's this mean?" Ember asked as they fell in line walking out to the hall. "This, in my opinion, is a good sign, Em." "Really?" she asked hopefully. "Yeah, the judge called a recess. He's gonna basically go to his office and look over all the facts of the case and apply those mitigating factors to see if the sentence fits. The fact that he's doing this at all is good. It's good because he's at least got something to think about. If he's got something to think about in regards to this case, it's because we gave him something to think about. Meaning it's not as cut and dry as they made it seem," he said, feeling as Ember took his hand, squeezing it. "I really hope this works, Finn." "Me too." "Today's going a lot better than I thought it would," Marcy said, looking at the two folders left on her desk. Her meetings had flown by, and so had the day. Her first four had passed without incident. They all had been respectful, not even questioning why. They were either doing it out of respect or pity, and Marceline wasn't sure which. "How'd you think it was gonna go?" Ignitus asked, looking up from his phone. He was sitting lazily on the couch, his leg hanging over the arm. "I don't know. It wasn't this, but I'll take it," she said softly, looking at the clock. There was 30 minutes until the next meeting. "You hear from Finn and Rambo yet?" she asked, watching as he shook his head. "Nah, I'm not expecting to hear from them for a little bit. Court takes forever. Last text was nearly an hour ago now. They went to recess, so we gotta wait and see." "I hope it goes well. I love seeing you smile." She watched as Ignitus grinned, unable to help himself as he did. "So handsome," Marcy said, making a kissy face, watching as his face turned pink. This made her laugh, and looking back to her papers, she began sorting through the next client's documents. Glancing over to the plant hanging in the window, Marceline frowned. "Iggy, can you remind me to water my office buddy when we get home?" "No problem. Random question though, do you have any snacks?" "In the closet I do, actually. I bought one of those mega value packs of granola bars. I hid it in the back of one of the boxes because Dad kept eating all the dark chocolate chunk bars," Marceline said, watching as he opened the closet and entered. Hmm. 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 Um, okay. Mm, doo-doo. Um, Sorry, I lost my place. Only moments later, there was a knock at the door. She looked at her clock in confusion. There was still 15 minutes before her next meeting. Marcy stood making herself presentable and walking to the door. She answered it, letting her client into the room. "Sorry I'm so early, Miss Aberdeen. The desk sent me straight up," he said, looking around the office as he entered, Marcy motioning him inside. "That's okay. I have the time today, so we can do this early. Please take a seat. Please take a seat." Taking the seat behind her desk, Marceline pulled his folder towards her and began going through the documents. "So what's going on?" "I'll be having you sign and initial these managerial transfer documents. My position has changed in the company and I'll no longer be managing clients. After this meeting, you'll be brought to Hunson Aberdeen's office where you will be introduced to your new manager." He signed the papers as instructed, and Marcy watched as Ignitus walked from the closet with several granola bars. He'd been so ready to say something fresh, but spotting a client and Marcy's quick look, Ignitus sat quietly on the couch, placing the bars on the table. He'd already eaten one in the closet, so he could wait to eat another. Marceline stood shaking the client's hand. Pulling out his phone, he spotted a missed text from Emma. "OMG, Iggy, Ig! Marceline's panic gasp snapped his attention immediately. Looking over, he spotted the client she'd been speaking with had grabbed Marcy's arm and sandwiched her between he and her desk. Ignitus was up in an instant. Grabbing the man by the back of his collar, he jerked him away from Marceline, slamming him face down on her desk. His heart was telling him that this was no doubt the correct choice. What he wanted to do and what he was doing were two very different things. His mind knew that Hudson would heavily disapprove of his methods. Ignitus, though, didn't particularly care. The moment he'd heard Marcy's panic gasp, it was a wrap. Yo, I didn't do anything. We were just talking, the man gasped. Ignitus, though, wasn't having it. Really? Because that looked like a whole lot of something to me, he growled, now glancing at Marcy. She'd completely frozen up. Reaching over for the desk phone, he pressed the button for the security extension. They were quick to respond, and in just a few minutes the office was empty, and it was just the two of them again. Marceline sat at her desk quietly, and once Ignitus locked the door, he walked over to her. Hey, are you okay? He asked gently. I'm okay. Her voice was tight and trembling, and her words were far too rushed. He could see her hands shaking from where he stood beside her. Wrapping his arms around her shoulders, Ignitus kissed the top of her head, listening to her shaking breaths. I'm not okay, she whispered, burying her face into him, holding him tightly. I know, baby. I know you're not. That scared me, so I know it definitely scared you too. Ignitus whispered, turning her chair so she'd be facing him. Come sit with me. We've got an hour until your next meeting, he said, coaxing her up. Leading her to the couch, Ignitus sat down, pulling her into his lap. um, He ran his fingers through her hair and along her back, feeling as she relaxed into him. Finally, he wrapped his arms around her, holding Marcy tightly. I hate that I froze up like that, she murmured. I know, love. It sucks. It absolutely does. I wish I could help, he said, giving her another squeeze. You did. You kept me safe. I'd say that's help enough. You know what I mean. I wish I could do more to help you now, he said, his thumb brushing against her shoulder. I know. Do you want to go home? He asked, feeling as Marceline shook her head. I only have one more meeting left, she said softly, closing her eyes, nuzzling her face into his neck. I'm aware, but that's not what I asked. Do you want me to bring you home? They both sat in silence, and finally Marceline spoke, albeit very softly. I wanted to prove that maybe my dad was wrong, but he wasn't. I was. This was so stupid, but I want to stay and see it through. It wasn't stupid, Marcy. You were doing what you had to in order to protect your career. It was an admirable choice. Things just didn't go how we hoped they would, and that happens. Things never go the way I think they do, she said softly. Actually, you're pretty spot on a good chunk of the time. It's kind of freaky, he said with a grin. It's really okay if you want to go home, though. You don't have to push yourself. You just had a scary experience. I think I just need some time sitting here with you, she said, leaning her head on his shoulder, closing her eyes. Okay, I'll check on you in a little bit. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Oh. Um, Finn could do nothing but stare in utter shock. There was no freaking way this worked. What's that mean, Finn? Ember asked quietly as the magistrate finished talking. Standing, they joined the group, leaving as the room began clearing. Her papa was once again brought to the back. What it means is that the judge agreed with us that mitigating factors were not taken into account. What he's doing now is taking the factors into account that weren't presented along with the programs he's taken well inside. I'm not trying to get your hopes up, but I really think you'll be bringing him home in less than a month, Finn said softly. You really think so? I genuinely really do. They approved his appeal, he said, feeling as Ember squeezed him tightly. Finn, I can't thank you enough for all of this. Every ounce of this entire situation from the very beginning has been a complete roller coaster, but thank you. Thank you so much. You know I'd do anything I could to make you happy, Em, and if this makes you happy, I'll bend myself into a pretzel to do it, he said as they walked to the car. I haven't bugged my parents in a while. Do you mind if we stop by to say hi? Not at all. I love your parents. I still have to find a I still have to find a way to thank your mom for what she did at our engagement party. Emily said as she climbed into the car. For your brother? Yeah. I don't know. Maybe treat her to lunch. Maybe treat her to lunch. That, or you guys could go get pedicures. If you do, I'm totally coming. You just want the hot rocks, Ember said, smirking at him. Damn right I want the hot rocks. I'm a manly man who works a lot. Those rocks were either brought directly from hell or are a little slice of heated heaven. Either way, my feet dig them, and so do I. I'll see what she'd rather do, she said with a laugh, watching as the scenery passed by. She'd just finished texting Iggy the news. Ember hadn't heard from her brother since the party. It had been only a few weeks, and she'd been more than patient with him, but her patience was wearing thin. She hadn't seen her parents since the party, and she hadn't so much as spoken to either of them, her father especially. She didn't want to believe what he told her. She didn't want to, but she did. She could absolutely see her father doing such a monstrous thing, especially to her brother. The dynamic had changed so drastically when she returned from her time abroad. That was what Ember didn't understand. What had happened in those 2 years that she didn't know about. At first, she'd thought that maybe it had been what happened with Papa. After what happened at their engagement, though, Ember wasn't sure now. When she looked up, they pulled up in front of his parents' house. Climbing from the car, she spotted a newly constructed home where her Nana's house once stood. Unable to help herself, she walked over, looking around. It looked empty. It looked empty. Peeking in, she saw that it was built very similarly to how it had once been. Opening the fence, she walked in the back. Um, She was curious as to who was rebuilding, her parents or her brother. Reaching under the doormat, Ember had her answer, finding the new spare key right where their Nana had always left it for she and her brother. Unlocking the door, she walked in. The layout was exactly as she remembered it. The only difference was that the rooms were bigger and there was a fourth bedroom at the end of the hall. Nana's bedroom was gone. In its place was a sunroom with a large skylight. The room itself was so warm and the house was beautifully done. Continued exploring until she heard a chime from her pocket. Pulling out her phone, she saw a text from Finn, soon-to-be husband. Em, you vanished. Where'd you go? At 2:37 p.m. Popping her phone back in her pocket, Ember walked towards the front door, pausing when she spotted a notepad on the counter. With a smile, she left a note on the pad and walked out the door, locking it behind her. She made her way across the street. She made her way across the street, spotting another car now as she went inside. Finn was always easy to find, and with how his mom cooked, she knew they'd be in the kitchen. Hey, Amber. Amma! She turned with a grin, spotting Marshall changing Arya in the living room. Marshall, when did you guys get here? Amber asked. Just a few ago. Everyone's in the kitchen, but somebody needed a clean bum, he said, snapping her onesie shut and pulling on her pajamas as Arya giggled. How's everything been? How's everything been? Work-wise has been a little ridiculous for us, Marshall said with a sigh, but I'll bet Iggs told you about that already. No, he hasn't told me much about what's going on with him work-wise. Things with Finn and I are good, Ember said, smiling as Marshall stood with the baby. I'm glad. Want to see something cool? He asked, watching Ember nod. Now he adjusted Ari in his arms so she was looking at him. Hey, where's Mommy? He asked as Ari began looking around the room. Amma? She asked, still looking around. Yeah, where's Mama? Marshall asked, placing Ori on the ground. That's so cute, her trying to find Fiona. Just wait, she'll hunt her down. Where's Mommy? He asked again. Let's go find Mommy. Ember looked up, sharing a grin with Marshall following along as Ori crawled off as fast as she could. They followed her into the kitchen, and the moment Ori spotted her mother, she screeched excitedly, crawling to her. Amma! There's my baby girl, Fiona said excitedly, Ellen stooping down and handing Ori to her daughter. Fiona, what happened to your foot? Ember asked, watching as she sighed. They had me wear these super tall heels at the event and I fell, she said simply, but we were just telling everyone how we're going on tour for the next 2 years. Hearing this had Ember in utter shock. What? What do you mean 2 years? It's the only way out of our current contract. Our manager is the worst. Uh, it's the only way out of our current contract. Our manager is the worst person on the planet, Marshall said, shaking his head. Sorry, I'm trying to do the voices properly. Why hasn't Iggy told me? She asked quickly. I don't know, Em. We could be waiting until we get the tour schedule. He could be waiting until we get the tour schedule. It should be in the next week or so, Marshall said, leaning against the doorway. We figured you guys wouldn't mind, but we wanted to ask if you guys wouldn't mind taking Ari for the shows where we're close by. That's all fine and well, guys. Always our granddaughter. That's all fine and well, guys. Always our granddaughter. That being said, that being said, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask for payment, Steve said, folding his hands on the table, Ellen looking at him in utter confusion. Steve, what on earth are you talking about? Ellen asked. Her husband, however, held up his hand to silence her. Ellen, this is a conversation between a man and his daughter's fiance, he said, staring at Marshall seriously. Fiona now shared a glance with Finn, who looked just as confused as she was. He didn't seem to have any idea what their father was talking about either. Looking to Marshall, she watched as a look of realization passed over his features before slowly he grinned. You want concert tickets, don't you? He asked, watching as Steve held his gaze. Damn right I do, and I want a t-shirt too. At this, Fiona couldn't help but laugh. She genuinely could imagine her dad at a concert too. The thought made her laugh, and it gave her an overwhelming sense of warmth. So much so she felt herself tearing up. There was no way Lich would dare have anyone harm her with her father there, right? I don't know, he's really friggin' powerful, apparently. You know we can probably get you a VIP pass. You know we can probably get you a VIP pass, right? Finn asked, now full on grinning at his father's face. I want that instead. What happens if Litch finds out that he's my dad? She thought suddenly. It wasn't outside the realm of possibilities for Litch to do something to him just because he was her dad. Iggy's been saying he doesn't want me going to the concerts, Ember said dejectedly. Well, he can't object if I take you, Finn said with a shrug. It'll be our next big date night. Really? She asked excitedly. Her brother could have no objection if Finn was planning on being her personal bodyguard for the night. Yep, and I'll even be the DD, so it's official. You can get as hammered as you want, Finn said as Ember grinned. Okay, DD is designated driver. God, this sounds awful, but I'm so excited, Ember said, laughing. Iggy hasn't wanted me to come for the last year now. Okay, so that's why. Guys, Fiona said, catching everyone's attention. She paused, not expecting such an immediate reaction. Our new label and our new manager are really, really bad people, she said sternly, watching all of their faces, save for Marshall's change to ones of confusion and concern. I'm not going to get into anything, but because we can't prove anything. But the one thing I can say is that if they offer you anything outside of just a ticket or a pass, be wary of it. We especially are not his favorite people. Fiona, what are you talking about? Marshall? Finn said, looking back and forth between the both of them. The only reason we're still with this label is because of a technicality. Fiona, if we can't be honest with them, then what's the point? Marshall asked suddenly, turning to look at Fiona. She looked around the room now, hesitantly handing Arya off to her mom as the baby reached for her grandmother. Back when Marshall signed us with Blood Rain, and I was pregnant with Ollie, Lynch had me taken from the house at knife point. They kept me as collateral until Marshall signed. The longer he put off signing the document, the more they hurt me. Marshall signed us so they would stop. We had a legal out. We found a loophole, but he set us up. He made it seem like we never responded to any media things that had been set up for us, but they never called any of us for them if they were real. Because of that, we're legally trapped, she said, now looking at her parents. If we try leaving, we'll lose the rights to all of our music, lyrics, and everything, along with being sued for everything he could take from us. We're screwed, so he offered us to go on tour for the next 2 years, and he'll let us off the hook a year early. It was that or he'd begin the lawsuit. Oh my God. Sweetheart, I can look over your contract. Mom, Hudson Aberdeen had the best lawyer he knew look over the contract for us. I'll give it to you, but I don't have high hopes. That and I'm scared. I don't want anything to happen to you guys or anything to happen to Ari. I wouldn't trust him and his people for anything, and I don't want you guys to either. Be cautious. Is this why Iggy doesn't want me to come? Probably, yeah. None of us trust Lich. He's a slimeball who's very good at appearing nice. Steve, maybe you shouldn't go. But Ellen, think about it. If Fiona's worried about Ollie and we're going to be keeping her, you don't want to be seen as connected to Fiona. Ellen said softly as Steve groaned loudly. Can't I just pretend I'm just a very happy dad-like fan? Please? I want to go one last time before I'm old. This is like a severe underreaction. Her dad doesn't have anything. Her dad only cares about the concert. He doesn't have anything to say about the fact that his daughter might be in danger. I don't know. It's weird. Whatever. Anyway, is there any possibility you'll forget and mess up? Ellen asked sternly, watching all the fight leave her husband. Now, though, she herself sighed, feeling bad for him. I'm sorry, honey. I know, me too. Unfortunately, you made extremely valid points that I can't overlook. Damn that sexy brain of yours. Dad, that's Mom. Dad, that's Mom. Ew, Finn said loudly. A knocking came to the front door, and turning Finn answered it, returning with Lady Jake and the girls. I'm glad everyone's here because we have an announcement, Jake said excitedly. If it weren't for the fact that you're already pregnant, I'd ask if you were having another baby. Ellen said, shaking her head in humor. It's funny that you mention it because speaking of babies, I'm getting a vasectomy this weekend, but that's not the news, Jake said, laughing. Lady, though, shook her head. We found out the gender, and we also learned an even more interesting fact today. Apparently twins apparently twins run in my family, Lady said as Ellen busted out laughing. Forget it. Oh my God, no wonder you're getting a vasectomy, she said, unable to stop laughing. Well, what are we having this time? Dare I say it? I'm excited to say that the three girls will be amazing big sisters to two little brothers, Lady said happily as everyone cheered in delight. I don't want brothers, Charlie said, bursting into tears. Why not? It's not like sisters are too great, Jackie said, earning the adult surprise as they all tried not to laugh. Savage, Finn said, looking up at the ceiling. You have no idea, Jake said, staring at him. This child's roasts are brutal. Now he looked to his parents. We can only stay for a little bit. We've been out all day and they're a bit cranky. Well, dinner's almost done. Do you guys want to stay? Daddy, please, please. Yes, Grandma, if you have enough for us, Jackie said excitedly. Yo, child, you have to ask me, the dad. Nuh-uh, she outranks you, she said with a shrug, pulling her jacket off. I have no idea who's talking at which point, whatever. I've more than enough for everybody. I was making a roast for dinner anyways. It should be just about done. Do you girls want to help me with the sides? We can make some biscuits and mashed potatoes, she asked as Jackie and Charlie hurried into the kitchen, Viola toddling along, babbling with Ari as Ellen carried her away. Dude, you got checked, Finn said as Jake glared at him. Bite me. Bro, ew. You all want to watch TV or play some games until dinner's ready? Finn asked, leading the way to the basement. Fiona, though, stayed at the table with her father and Marshall. Steve reached out his hand, placing it over his daughter's. We're here for the three of you with whatever's going on. You know that, right? He asked gently, feeling as Fiona squeezed his hand. I do. Dad, we're scared. The better part of an hour had passed, and Marcy had fallen asleep against his shoulder. Ignitus could understand that, and honestly, he'd expected it. After such an adrenaline rush, you always come out of it exhausted. Squeezing her shoulder, he felt as she squeezed him back and smiled. Positioning her so she wouldn't fall over, Ignitus stood checking the time for next meeting. It was in less than 5 minutes. Before he could even move from the desk, a knock came to the door. From here, he knew the couch he'd been sitting on was barely visible, so he knew he wouldn't have to worry about Marceline being seen unless she started snoring. Taking a breath, he hoped Marcy wouldn't kill him as he answered the door. He'd been watching her do this all day. He could do this. I'm sorry, do I have the right office? The man asked, looking confused, and remembering that he needed to be friendly, Ignitus smiled. You're here for Marceline, right? Yes, I'm a PA and I'll be handling this meeting. Please sit, he said, allowing him into the room, um, and motioning to the chair. Sitting at the desk, he began Marcy's speech about signing and initialing documents and transfer of managerial power that would come from doing so. Marceline has taken a more indirect position in the company and will no longer be working directly with the clientele, Ignitus said, shuffling through the papers, signing Marceline's name and putting his initials next to it. He'd seen Marceline do this with her father's signature dozens of times. The man signed the documents, initialing and signing in all of the labeled spaces. Once they were finished, he'd called Hunson's secretary, like he'd seen Marceline do at the conclusion of all the other meetings. Hanging up, he looked back to the man in front of him. Hudson's secretary will be down in just a minute to grab you. He'll introduce you to your new manager, and you guys will go from there, he said, watching as the client nodded his head. That sounds good to me. A knock came to the door once again, and as he walked the man from the room, he could see Marceline staring from the corner of his eye. Luck was on their side because it was only after he'd closed and locked the door that Marceline jumped from the couch with a panicked gasp. The meeting! Baby, it's all good. I handled it. You. What? I handled it, he said again, watching the confusion paint over her features. Marcy, I've been watching you do this all day. I just pretended I was your PA. I signed your name and initialed next to it like you do with your dad's signature. That's okay, right? He asked, watching as she nodded slowly. And he signed everything? Yup. Any questions? Outside the obvious who am I? Nope, he said, shaking his head. Marcy still blinking away the confusion. Really? Really, really? You were thinking that in Shrek's voice, weren't you? She asked flatly as Ignitus busted out laughing. You know me way too well, he said with a grin. Hey, do you remember back on our weekend getaway when I said I had something I wanted to show you? He asked suddenly. Yeah. Do you want to see it now? What is it? Well, that would absolutely ruin the surprise, he said as Marceline reached for a coat. Okay, let's go, she said, grabbing her plant. Grabbing her box, Ignitus followed along next to Marceline as they walked from the office to the parking lot. Marcy popped the trunk for Ignitus as she placed her plant safely on the floor of the back seat. They were on the highway heading towards home, but to her surprise, they got off an exit early, the same exit they would have taken to go to Fiona's parents' or at one point his Nana's house. They drove down the familiar streets and Marceline smiled, looking at the lights that now adorned the houses for the holidays. The streets became more familiar and turning again. Marceline had a feeling she knew where they were headed. The first thing she spotted were the line of cars out front of the White House. The next thing she noticed was the new house they were currently parked in front of. You've been rebuilding your Nana's place? Marceline asked, looking at him in surprise. He hadn't even so much as spoken about the house, not of his plans for it, or even what he'd thought about doing with it. I have. I've changed some things. I mean, I hired people to do the work, but I painted, he said with a shrug. Do you want to see it? He asked. But before he could even finish his sentence, Marceline was already walking up the lawn. With a grin, he climbed from the car. Walking to the front door, he unlocked it, letting her in. Um, he unlocked it, letting her in. The first thing he had noticed was the smell of Ember's perfume. Marceline slowly walked from room to room as Ignitus waited patiently in the kitchen. Spotting the note, he glanced at it, smiling softly. Iggy, the house is absolutely beautiful. You should be so proud of yourself. We'll talk very soon. XOXO Emma. Iggy, the house is beautiful, Marceline said with a smile as she returned from the end of the hall. Some things are different, but I love it. I think your Nana would love it too. Yeah? He asked, drawing her close. I absolutely do, she said, leaning forward to kiss him. What do you have planned for it? I was hoping we could live here, but if you don't want to, I'll give it to Emma. That'll re-rent it out, he said, watching as Mercy shook her head. No, you don't ever have to do that. I think we'd be very happy here. Can you really see our life here, Marcy? He asked seriously. Now Marcy led him to the very end of the hall to the smallest bedroom. I can see this being an office or a playroom, she said, turning to the bigger room as she leaned against the doorframe. I can see this being a bedroom for one of our kids, she said, watching as he smiled at her. Kids, huh? He asked with a grin. She led him to the next bedroom. Yep, plural. Kids. The same for this room, too, she said, now turning to the master bedroom. This would definitely be our room. I see. This would definitely be our room. I can see warm summers and cold winters and our kids climbing on us on Christmas Day to wake us up, she said, smiling as she took his hand, leading him to the living room. I can see the Christmas tree in this corner, and we can put photos on the mantle of the fireplace. In the sunroom, we can hang plants and make it kind of like a greenhouse, she said excitedly. I can see me reading on a stormy day with your head in my lap and listening to the rain falling on the skylight. I can see us bringing babies home and having pets and parties. Iggy, of course I can see our life happening here, Marceline said as she wrapped her arms around his neck. We'll have an amazingly beautiful life here, she said, bringing his lips to his. I'm so happy to hear you say that. Ignitus couldn't help the excitement in his voice as he smiled at her. You'll be the one cooking the turkey for the holidays, by the way. Yours came out delicious, she said, watching as he beamed with pride. I can definitely do that as long as you cover the sides, he said, meeting her smile with his. I'm so excited, she said, hugging him tightly. Thank you for bringing me here. Come on, he said, pulling back. Let's go home. Marcy, though, shook her head. No, let's go back to my dad's. We'll come back home soon, she said, making him smile. Okay. There's a note. There's an important note. Enjoy the chapter, review, and let me know what you guys think. Hey everyone, this time skip starts with the next chapter, The Missing. Each time skip will be several months apart and will be done just like the other one as we cover the tour. The time skip will take 2 years. That will bring Fiona from 21 to 23, Marshall from 23 to 25, and Ollie to almost 3 as she's just about a year old now. Things will go quickly. There will be drama, angst, romance, and I'll do my best to make you guys scream at least 2 or 3 times before it's over. Love ya. Happy holidays, XOXO, and some letters and numbers. Alright, so there's another chapter, but I have to take a break and I will be back shortly. I want to do a third chapter today because I want a 3 chapter upload. Chapter 113, The Missing. 1 month later, 1 year and 11 months until this time skip ends. Oh, I forgot to mention in the last comments in the last chapter, it said that Lucas is Lumpy Space Prince. So in case you were wondering. People were bustling around backstage as normal, but to Fiona's confusion, she was brought directly to Lucas in the dressing room. It was like the other autograph signings they've done, but this time she just didn't understand why. Lucas, what's the point of makeup right now if we're just gonna sweat it all off? Fiona asked before he finished her face. Oh, honey, this is the big leagues, he said, dusting her face as he started on her eyes. Like the big, big leagues. You're the main act now. You guys aren't opening for anyone else anymore. You're the headline. These kinds of concerts are going to be recorded, and Mr. Litch will expect you all to look your best, he said, now spraying her hair generously with hairspray. How's the ankle? I got a doctor's note. No high heels for the next few months. Other than that, it's gotten better. I don't need the boot anymore. I'm glad to hear it. We need you guys at your tip-top best, he said, turning the chair and adjusting the lights on the mirror. Fiona blinked at the mirror before realization set in. How he managed to somehow turn her into a freakishly flawless thing of beauty each and every time was beyond her. Holy crap, that's me! Damn right it is. Looking every bit like the rock star I knew you'd be, he said, smiling. I have my assistants handling the boys. Let's hope everything goes well for the pre-show VIP meet and greet. Wait, what? Fiona gasped. They hadn't been told of any pre-show anything. Have you not gotten the itinerary? No, nobody told us about that, Fiona said, shaking her head. I swear, all these assistants do is mess things up, Lucas said with a sigh. You, hold up, he said, making a young man stop dead in his tracks. Yes, Mr. Pierce? I need 10 copies of the itinerary, 2 for each member of Marshall Lee and the Scream Kings, 1 to keep on their person and 1 for their makeup and wardrobe area. I want you back here in less than 5 minutes with confirmation initials that they have been distributed to the band members. Am I clear on this? Crystal, sir. With that, the assistant was gone faster than Fiona could imagine. That is how you get things done around here, Fiona. No shyness, no trepidation. Own your presence, take action, and demand what's yours, he said, handing her a clothing bag and sending her into the dressing room. By the time Fiona came out, she watched the assistant from earlier, red-faced and panting, offering Lucas a piece of paper. He gave it a quick once-over, and with a nod, he placed it on the counter. That'll be all, he said, dismissing him with a wave. Catching a glimpse of Fiona from the corner of his eye, he turned and grinned. Oh, honey, the fierceness is unreal. I need the full-body visual, he said, offering his hand. Spin, let's see. Taking his hand, Fiona did as she was told, and was unable to hold back her smile. This outfit was much less revealing than the last one, though it was far more form-fitting. That was something she could handle. Anything that needs to change on it? Fiona asked while Lucas circled her. Yes, the tool, tully tulle on the skirt was supposed to be far more tattered and shorter, though for my best guess, this outfit was chosen without thought to her current footwear limitations. Kneeling and lifting the hem of the skirt, he handed it to her. Measuring it out with his hands, he pinched a section of the cloth between his fingers. I want you to rip the cloth until you get to my fingers. You'll need to rip it with force. If you go too slowly, it'll come out wonky. Lucas watched Fiona do as she was asked, tearing the fabric in one go. Very good. And here? Together they worked on the edge of the dress, Lucas keeping track of the time as they did. Within 15 minutes until the meet and greet, he pulled out the scissors. All right, what I'm going to do is cut it. I'll make it shorter in the front and longer in the back. Think of a ducktail, he said, making quick snips of the fabric. In a blink, he was done, and Fiona couldn't help but smile. I look like some kind of fallen angel, she said with a grin. And you've got a voice to match, he said, checking the time again. Time to go. You're on at the meet and greet in less than 5 minutes, he said just as a knock came to the door. ETA, the pre-show meeting starts in 4 minutes 30 and counting. She's completely done. We can fit her with a mic after they're seated, Lucas said, motioning Fiona from the room. Go with him. I'll be there shortly with the wireless mic for you. With a nod, Fiona did as she was told, and following the stage manager, she was led to another room. This one she was happy to see had Marshall and the guys already waiting inside it. The door closed behind her, and the first person to speak up was FP. So, was anyone else completely unaware of this meet and greet? He asked, getting the silence he imagined he would. I didn't even know we had this, not until that kid came tearing in, wanting me to show that paper, Mo said, shaking his head as he sighed. You guys think Kate's okay? Dude, Mercy's with her. As long as they stay together, they'll be fine and we won't have to worry, Ignitus said with a shrug. That was bouncing legs suggested otherwise. I just want to know who was nice enough to let us know about this, Marshall said, holding up the itinerary. It was Lucas, Fiona said, watching the sour look return on Marshall's face. And what did he have to gain by doing this? I don't know, Marsh's livelihood? Fiona said, now annoyed. The more we work, the more he works. Why would he want to cause us problems? Look, I just don't want to see him using your friendship as a way to spy on us from Lich. I told you, I don't think he's like that. Why can't you trust my judgment? Fiona asked, watching as Marshall looked away from her, scowling. This was starting to frustrate her, more so than she was currently willing to admit. Walking over, Fiona placed her hands on the arm of the chair he was sitting in and leaned down so she was face to face with him, keeping her voice low so only he could hear her. Fiona spoke. I don't appreciate how you're acting. I understand because of who you works for, why you're, why you're so hesitant and wary. I was too, but Marshall, Fiona said, being sure to keep her voice low and steady. He's respectful, he's nice, he doesn't force my boundaries, and he's a good person. That being said, I'm engaged to you. I have a baby and will have more babies with you. I'm going to marry and live the rest of my life with you. This jealousy was cute at first, but it's not anymore. I've never given you a reason not to trust me or my judgment, Marshall. You need to understand that you acting like this is hugely disrespectful to me, and I'm not having any more of it. Standing, she walked over to the couch, sitting between Ash and Mo with her arms crossed. Marshall stood walking over to her, but the second he opened his mouth to speak, the door opened. Time to move, guys. The meet starts when you guys sit down. It'll cover the first three opening acts and end just before the act opening for you goes on, he said, flipping through the clipboard as he motioned them out of the room. Fiona, you still need your mic set up. Lucas will be waiting for you at your seat. Fiona was the first one up and out of the room, the rest of the guys trailing after her. With a sigh, Marshall followed along. With things going this way, it was going to be a long night. Finn and Ember. Ember was so excited as she bounced through the crowd, Finn on her heels. She was having an absolute ball of a time. The opening acts weren't half bad, and the fans weren't total pains in the butt either. Finn, to his surprise, was keeping up with her energy. Luckily for him, she only had one drink. Unluckily for him, she was on her second. The first three bands had been great, and while the current band played, Ember had decided it was her mission to get backstage passes to surprise her brother. They, she knew, would be great. Once Iggy got over being mad, everything would be fine. She was just hoping she could find someone to score backstage passes from. Finn paused, and touching her shoulder, he motioned to a merch stand littered with t-shirts, and with a nod and a smile, Ember followed him. Getting one for your dad? And a CD. You know I have to at this rate. If I don't, Dad would probably cry. You're a good son, she said with a laugh. While Finn paid for his shirts, Ember scoped out the other merch tents, pausing when she noticed a woman her age waving her over. Taking another sip of her drink, Ember walked over. Hey, are you here with your boyfriend? She asked, motioning to Finn. Yeah, you could call him that. What's up? Need any help or anything? She asked, paying attention now to everything. Well, my boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend now, we got into a real piss of an argument, and I'm gonna leave him here. I saw you asking around for backstage passes earlier. I don't have those, but we did get upgraded to VIP passes when we got in if you're interested. Girl, yes, you leave his sorry ass right here. How much do you want for them? Don't even worry about it. It was his money. Enjoy the show, she said, handing her the passes and walking off. Thanks, have a better night. Emma called back, heading over to Finn triumphantly. There you are, his word for half a second. Sorry, some girl just gave me her VIP passes because she and her boyfriend just broke up. I feel for her, but let's hurry to the VIP section before she changes her mind. Ember said, holding up the passes, Finn staring at them in shock. Pulling his on, he grabbed her hand, hurrying along. Uh, they passed through each checkpoint, and every time they scanned the passes, Finn expected them to finally be placed in a section. That, however, didn't happen. Each section that passed became more and more exclusive until finally the person who scanned their passes nodded, motioning them to follow. I have a bad feeling about this. They were led into a booth with an amazing view of the stage, and Ember was grinning like a fool. How cool is this? She said excitedly, looking over the rail at the view. A knock came to the door, and walking over, Finn answered it. Hi, all VIP Hi, all VIP guests get a complimentary drink. If you fill out this drink request ticket and press this button, we'll bring them along ASAP, the waitress said with a smile. The pre-show meet and greet has concluded for our headliners, but all backstage activities for our concluded lineups are ready to go. Thanks, but we're here for the big guys, Ember said, smiling back at the waitress, who nodded, walking from the room. Okay, this is pretty awesome, Finn said as Ember laughed. This is so cool. See, Iggy was worried for nothing, she said, filling out her drink order. You sure you don't want one? It's free. There was no playing while being the designated driver, Em, Finn said, shaking his head as he kicked his feet up. Besides, if your brother knew I had even a sip while being your designated driver, he'd probably kill me. Although, I guess you can get a non-alcoholic drink. I'd ask for Diet Coke. I don't like alcohol either. Hey, I had to offer. Shrugging, she filled out the second ticket and pressed the button, passing the slips to the first person who opened the door. Walking back over, Ember sat in Finn's lap, giving him a kiss. Thanks for bringing me, Finn. I'm having a great time, she said, wrapping her arms around him. It's my pleasure. They sat enjoying the other band as the drinks were brought in. The waitress placed them on the table beside them, quietly walking from the room. Reaching over, Finn handed Ember her drink, earning himself a kiss to the cheek. The openers to the headline were great, but the moment the stage darkened, Ember downed the rest of her drink and jumped up in excitement, Finn following as they leaned on the railing. The curtain dropped, and the audience screamed, Ember joining them as the band began playing. Knock 'em dead, Iggy! Marceline. Marceline leaned against the rail, and turning to Kate, she was met with a grin that matched her own. This was the first time either of the girls had been to one of the concerts since the band worked with her father. They had arrived with the band earlier, but the boys and Fiona were quickly swept away. They were brought to a VIP box and given a drink ticket each. Kate, Marceline noticed, was grilling everybody. Were all the VIP guests always treated this way? Was everyone in VIP getting a free drink? All her questions were being answered, and finally they were alone as the stagehand left the room. So what do you think? Kate asked, looking over at Marcy, who shrugged. Honestly, it all seems to be checking out pretty okay. I haven't seen anything sketchy happening, and I've been looking. We're being treated the same way Dad treats the guests of his artists. The only difference is the drink tickets. We usually front all their drinks. Marcy said, leaning back on the rail as she looked out at the stage. I'm down to use the tickets if you are. If every VIP box is getting free tickets, I really don't see the point in wasting hours, she said as Kate nodded, filling hers out and filling out Marcy's as she requested. Marceline couldn't wait for them to start. Even before they were together, she loved watching Ignitus perform. It was something he genuinely loved doing, and she could see it in his every action. Every one of them loved what they were doing, but it took a genuine gift to work the audience the way he could. While Marshall did a great job at working the crowd, he was far more mellow than Ignitus was. People would stand, cheer, clap, and sing along with Marshall. They would tear the house down had he asked it of them, but his sway over the audience was more like a steady crashing of waves. It was a powerful but controlled chaos. Ignitus, on the other hand, with his high energy, was like a raging wildfire, lighting everything he touched ablaze. He bounced around the stage, bringing the crowds and the pits to life. Mosh pit, circle pit, well of death. If he named it, the crowds fell in line and obeyed without hesitation. He was born a lead to perform, and to her it was more than obvious. A knock came to the door, pulling Marcy from her thoughts. Turning, she spotted a waitress entering with their drinks. They both thanked her, and as she walked from the room, Marceline took a glass, taking a drink. Wow, this is really strong, Kate said after a small sip, putting down her glass. Marcy couldn't help but agree, but despite this, she stirred her drink and took another sip. Try stirring it. Mine tastes way better now, she said, watching Kate do as she was told. She took another sip and sighed. Mine still tastes a bit strong, but I can wait for my ice to melt, she said, meeting Marcy at the railing again just as the stage darkened and as the audience began cheering. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong, and it wasn't the alcohol. Oh, this is Ember and Finn, by the way. Emma could feel the sweat beading on her forehead as she gripped the railing, trying to steady herself. The room just wouldn't stop spinning. Everything felt so weird. She never felt like this before, and this had come on so very suddenly. The music even sounded muffled and weird. All she could hear was her heart beating in her ears. Just as they finished up their second song, Finn turned to her. Ugh. She watched as his mouth began moving, his voice a delayed echo in her ears. I've got to use the bathroom. I'll be right back. He's leaving? No, 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 no. She was quick to grab his arm. Speaking had been so hard to do. Ember stumbled, and Finn caught her, coaxing her into the seat just behind them. I think you might have had a bit. I think you might have had just a bit too much to drink, Finn said, gently kneeling down in front of her. Ember gripped his shoulders. Sh- Ember gripped his shoulders with trembling hands. Finn, please don't leave me. The desperation in her voice was palpable. It had taken everything she had to force that out. Finn pulled back, looking at her in concern. His eyes scanned over her now, taking in anything that could be wrong. Her face was flushed, and she was sweating, but she didn't feel warm. Ember, what's... Finn's heart dropped. Fiona's warning didn't seem so silly now that Ember had slumped lifelessly against him. Hey, look at me, Finn said quickly, turning her face towards his as he patted her cheek. Ember, come on, open her eyes. Open your eyes. Her eyes struggled to open before she grew still once again. Finn tried everything he could to rouse her. The door opening caught his attention, and his eyes met with a number of security met with a member of security. Immediately, the man spoke up. Just doing rounds, he said, closing the door, but before he could, Finn called him back. Can you call can you call someone from medical? We need help, Finn said as the man entered the room, closing the door behind him. Pulling out his walkie-talkie, he began speaking into it, and another individual entered with a wheelchair. With his help, Ember was loaded into the chair and wheeled from the room, Finn following closely behind. Oh boy. Is this happening to everyone? Kate. Guess we'll find out. Kate watched the room spin as she gripped the table with both hands. She was doing her best to keep her focus. The blaring music around her was now distorting itself in her ears. She was watching Moiseline, who had leaned against the wall to maintain her balance. Now she was slowly sliding down it. She looked as scared and as confused as Kate felt. Something's... something's... Everything felt wrong. Her whole body felt numb. Her eyes looked to the door, and it seemed to be miles away. She could see the silhouette of the security member assigned to guard the VIP box through the glass. He had peeked in earlier, as if clearing it. That was just after they'd gotten their complimentary drinks. Marcy! Kate slipped, tumbling to her knees, gasping as she fell, knocking the other half of her drink over. She could hear the sound of shattering glass as Marceline hit the floor, now silent. It has to be the drinks, Kate thought desperately, her heart pounding. Her ears picked up the sound of a door opening, but that couldn't be right. She was staring at the only entrance to the room. She could hear footsteps much heavier than Marceline's moving around the room now. Kate felt a hand grab her shoulder. Kate felt his hand grab her shoulder, turning her over onto her back. Her eyes were fighting to stay open. Kate needed to see who it was so she could tell Modestus, and he would beat their sorry asses. Her heart, her heart raced in fear as she was pulled into a wheelchair. A towel was draped over her head and shoulders, and a water bottle was dropped onto her lap. They were wheeled from the room, but not into the packed streams of fans. Instead, they were wheeled through a door disguised as a bulletin board displaying the arena's upcoming events. It was taking everything Kate could to stay awake. If only a few sips had her like this, what would the whole thing have done? Seeing Moisey, she knew. They were wheeled into an unlit back room and left there in the dark. Um, Kate's vision blurred further as she tried to look around. Suddenly, the door opened behind them. Check the barcodes on the VIP passes and record them as identification markers, a disturbingly familiar voice said as the light was flicked on. Oh no. Turning her head took everything Kate had. Looking over, she spotted the familiar face of the man she'd been researching for the last several months, Lich's head of security, Declan Cromwell. Oh shit. Looking up from his clipboard, their eyes met for the briefest moments. Looking over at the one who'd wheeled them in, looking steadily more furious as the seconds passed. Grabbing his arm, they walked out, leaving her in the dark room. Kate's eyes grew heavy as the haze increased, and slowly she blacked out. Stars! Kate felt a sharp stinging on her cheek and could see the blinding flashes of light as her skin burned. Wincing, she forced her eyes open. Their gaze met, and again her face was jarred to the side by the force of his slap. Well, damn, and here I was thinking you were still out for the count, Declan drawled. Kate ignored him. Looking over, she spotted Marceline still in the chair beside her. Seeing her, she felt her shoulders sag in relief. Her face, though, was roughly grabbed and jerked towards his. Focus on me, he growled. Kate mustered the most loathing look she could to glare back at him with. This, though, only seemed to amuse Declan as he laughed. Kitten, today is your lucky day. You're beyond lucky, really, he said, stroking her cheek. It so easily could have been mistaken for a tender gesture. Kate, though, knew better. She blinked blearily, her vision was swimming again. I know you realize that I hold your very life as you know it in my hands, he said, staring down at her. That being said, you know I'm the one you should be afraid of, right? He asked, his voice low. His thumb traced along her lips as Kate sat in her steadfast silence. You don't have to worry yet, though. I have special plans just for you. Regardless, that doesn't mean I still won't make you beg before I let you go, he said with a smirk, walking from the room, flicking off the light, leaving her in the dark. What the hell is he trying to do? Mokro. The crowd screamed and cheered as they played. Marshall had built them up, but now Now it was FP's turn to bring down the house. They played their hearts out. Marshall and he singing, FP screaming, and Ash shredding on the drums. They were playing in front of thousands of fans, but he couldn't get his mind off of Kate. Ig was worried about Marcy, and he was worried about Kate. There was no logic or reason to his worry. Marcy, he just didn't trust Lich as far as he could throw him, and he didn't trust his security team either. Before they gotten on stage, Kate had been texting him steadily. She and Marcy were in the VIP boxes, and from the stage, he could just barely see them. Monet Mo knew they would have a better view of him than he did of them. That night he knew was almost over, and that in and of itself was such a relief. Just before the last song started, Mo caught Marshall's eye and nodded towards the back, watching as he nodded. They didn't need him for this song, Motion Inc. had it more than covered. Slipping away, Mo put his guitar with their stuff and headed towards the back. The stairs he knew were the fastest way to get to the VIP boxes. Spotting security at the stairs, though, he turned, heading down another hall. The further he walked, the louder the audience grew. Pulling out his phone, he was about to text Kate when, to his surprise, a familiar and angry voice caught his attention. Mo looked up from his phone just as another member of security passed, pushing someone in a wheelchair. This was ridiculous. Ember had been brought to two medical tents, both of which had already been at capacity. Finn was worried, more so than he wanted to admit. This wasn't normal, this wasn't natural, and he had a feeling the drinks had been drugged. Security had offered to grab him a drink every time they stopped at a new medical tent, and Finn adamantly refused with each time. That alone had been what had cemented that very thought. Now all he could hear was Fiona's warning echoing in his head. Again, he followed along as they wheeled Ember now backstage. Finn felt only fury as another security guard held his arm out, stopping him. Authorized personnel only, he said simply. No freaking way her am I leaving her alone with you damn people. Move out of my damn way. Finn? The familiarity the familiarity of the voice snapped his attention so quickly he felt his neck twinge in pain. But Finn didn't care. Salvation was here. He pointed down the hall, pinning Mo with a stare. Get Emma! Finn watched his eyes widen as he turned on his heel, sprinting down the hall. He'd run straight past the duo, pushing the chair, sliding to a stop in front of them. What the hell? Where the hell are you bringing her? Mo asked, placing his hands on the arms of the wheelchair, stopping him. The hallway to medical was crowded. We were bringing her the back way, the man said quickly, too quickly for his liking, so much so it sounded rehearsed. I'll bring her, Moko said, pinning him with a glare. Sir, I'm just doing my job, and you're about to lose it, Mo growled. She's family. Now let go of the chair. They stared each other down for what felt like the longest time. Finally, after sharing a look with the man next to him, he stepped back, lifting his hand from the handles of the wheelchair. She's all yours. Damn straight. Grabbing the chair, Mo turned it, pushing Ember back towards where Finn was waiting. Now he addressed the other security member. He's with me. Let him in. Finn watched as the security guard stepped aside, allowing him back. The first thing he did was check on Ember. She was still out for the count, but she was breathing, and that in and of itself was a relief to him. Looking up, he met Moko's eyes before glancing around. Thank you. What are you guys doing here? Ig's gonna be pissed. Well, he is now, Finn said, falling into step with Mo as they walked down the hall. Em's been saying she wanted to come for months now, so I brought her. Fiona warned us last month to be careful, and this ended up happening, he said, shaking his head. I feel like an idiot. Don't. That's everyone's first mistake. What, feeling dumb? No, he said, pausing outside the main medical room, underestimating Lich's reach and what he's willing to do, he said, knocking on the open door. A woman in scrubs came to the door and immediately frowned, spotting the VIP passes. Another one? There must be a mislabeled bottle. Another one? There must be a mislabeled bottle in the VIP section, she sighed, motioning them in. They were led to a sectioned off room, and the medic began checking over Ember. While she did so, Finn told her what had happened, answering the questions she'd asked. Mo nudged him, holding up his phone. With a nod, Finn turned back to the medic as Mo walked from the room. Dialing Kate, he held the phone to his ear, waiting for a moment before hearing the familiar ringing. The chill that went through him at that moment was indescribable. Turning, he walked down the hall, following the twinkling ringing. Pausing at the closed door in front of him, Mo grabbed the handle, pushing it open. The first thing his eyes landed on was Marceline laying on a gurney. Other than Marcy and both she and Kate's purses, this room was empty. Immediately, he was at her side, checking her over. Finn! Mo heard the approaching footsteps as he sent out a group text to the band. Finn paused at the threshold of the door. Oh shit! Looks like you're off the hook with Ig. He's gonna have bigger fish to fry than you, he said, walking from the room. He needed to find Kate now. Just as he was about to call out to the medic, Fiona's stylist walked in. Hey, Lucas, here for the after show usual? You know what, doll? Band-Aids, one ice pick, and two hot packs, load 'em up. he said as she walked off, now looking over at Mo curiously. What are you doing here, Sunshine? I figured you'd be with the rest of the band, Lucas said with a grin. Mo was having one hell of an internal battle right now. Fiona hands down trusted this guy, and Marshall didn't. Taking a breath, he took his chance while the medic was still gone. Fiona trusts you. You need to get everyone down here, Ignitus especially, he said, watching Lucas's face grow serious. Both his wife and sister are here and out cold. Fiona's brother is here too, and my girlfriend is missing. I need to find her. Here you go, Lucas. Thanks, hun, he said, now looking to Mo. I've got you, boo. Consider it done. Wait. Yes, darling? Marshall might not believe you're just the messenger, he said, now wondering what he could do about this. I know, I'm definitely not Marshall's favorite person. Is there anything I can say to either of them so they'll know it's coming from you? Something simple that I wouldn't know. Mm, uh, he Uh, Mo sat there for a mere moment before sighing. God, this will sound conceited, but if it's Marshall, tell him we got our foot into Nightosphere because of me. For Ig, I cannot believe I'm saying this, his safe word is pineapple. Mo watched as Lucas's eyebrow raised as he grinned. Oh, honey, color me intrigued, he said, walking from the room. Now Mocha looked towards the medic. Was there anyone who came in with Marcy? The woman in the back with the black hair? He said, catching her off guard. Yes, she came down with another girl. Crazy cute, curly honey brown hair, button nose, gorgeous green eyes with the softest southern accent you've ever heard. About this tall? He asked quickly, measuring out her height in comparison to him. Honestly, that sounds all correct for the girl earlier. She was picked up by the head of security once she came around. I guess he's checking into leads on this. Where's security? He asked quickly. The main office is on the top floor, but I'm sure that would be empty. The events office is on the main floor. What? No, no. The events office is on the main floor. Ah, stop. She barely finished her sentence before Mo hurried from the room. Okay, I don't know who's she. Whatever. Okay, I can admit that I've been judgmental and a jerk, Marshall said, watching as Fiona raised an eyebrow. About? Ouch, Girlie's getting that pound of flesh. Marshall sighed, closing his eyes. I was judgmental about your friend Lucas, who, by the way, has done nothing wrong to deserve this attitude. And I shouldn't let my jealousy ever cloud my trust in your judgment again. I was going to say respect my judgment, but that works. For real though, I need you to trust me, Marshall. If you don't, then what are we doing? She makes a solid point. Iggy, butt out. Marshall snapped, now feeling more than annoyed. He didn't need his damn relationship on trial right now. Fiona, you're right. I'm sorry. Thank you. All I wanted was a genuine apology, she said, giving him a smile. There you are. Marshall looked over and swallowed a sigh. It was Lucas. He did tell Fiona he would try. What he hadn't expected was the rush of words to come pouring from the man. I have a message from Mo. It's massively important. His boo's gone missing. Fiona, your brother is here in medical with his girlfriend. Ignitus, your sister and wife are there, and they're not well. The entire group the entire group stared at him, and Lucas stared back. Are you serious? Fiona asked in a small voice. Honey, you know I don't play with things like this. Quickly, she looked to Marshall. Who's she? Whatever. But it was FP that spoke up. How do we know this isn't a trick? Your safe word is pineapple, Lucas said, watching as Ignitus blinked in surprise. You have my undivided attention. Where's Em and Marcy? In medical. Come with me, he said, rushing from the room, FP close behind. Marshall fell into step with Fiona as they hurried along. He still didn't know if they could trust him, but this was obviously serious enough for Mo to. After zigzagging through a maze of hallways, they entered another room. Finn's head, Finn's head stuck through an open door. Both Fiona and Ignitus hurrying over. You better have a damn good explanation for what's going on, Finn, he snapped, giving Ember a quick once-over before turning to check on Marcy. I don't have time for an interrogation, Egg. We're waiting for the EMTs and we're getting these two to a hospital. Where's the medic? Lucas asked, looking around. The EMTs got lost in this labyrinth and she went to meet them, Finn said as Fiona looked curiously at Ember, feeling a tinge of fear. Guys, I'm not trying to freak anyone out, but is this crappy lighting or are her lips turning blue? What? Check if she's breathing. Where's the medic? Does anyone know CPR? Is she breathing? The panic in the room was palpable now. Surprising even herself, Fiona stepped up. Lucas, I want you to go and find that medic and the EMTs, she said, pointing towards the door he hurried through. Marshall, call 911, she said, looking up the steps for CPR on her phone, hoping this would work. Ash, hold your phone under her nose to see if she's breathing. Her breath will fog up the screen. What do you need me to do? Ignitus asked, desperately looking from Marceline to Ember. I need you to stay with Marcy right now. Ash, tell me good news, Fiona said, studying the motions on the screen. She's breathing, but barely. Marsh, what does 911 say? Check for a pulse. Ash, it's weak. It's weak. What about me? What do you need me to do? Finn asked as Fiona passed him. Stay with Ig, she said, pulling her hair up. Ash, you're going to count the presses for me, Fiona said. Now she turned to Marshall. What does 911 say? Start CPR. Tilting Ember's head back and plugging her nose, she gave Ember 2 deep breaths. Fiona watched her chest rise just how it was supposed to and began the compressions. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Just tell me when I need to switch, she said, continuing on. Never in a million years did she think CPR would be this exhausting. Do the breaths, Ash said, watching as she swapped off again, giving 2 long breaths before starting again. Marshall was still on the phone with 911. The stadium apparently had several ambulances stationed there, and more than one team of EMTs were on the way. He was doing his best to answer the dispatcher's questions. Walking over, he grabbed Finn's arm. Do you know how many drinks she had? She had 2 of the wine cooler cans, and she was fine. She had another drink and a half in the VIP. I think they drugged the drinks, he said as Marshall relayed everything. After 9 rounds of CPR, Lucas returned, not with the medic, but another set of EMTs who quickly took over. Fiona's arms and shoulders ached, trembling from the exertion. She stepped back, feeling Marshall's arm wrap around her shoulder as she leaned against him. To her surprise, Ignitus stayed behind as Ember was rushed from the room. Finn, they had decided, would go with Ember. FP would stay and go with Marceline. The room grew quiet as the group stood there. When out of the blue, Lucas began a slow clap as he walked up to Fiona. Honey, I've been telling you for weeks now to own your presence and take charge. That was the most incredible thing I've seen from you yet, he said with a smile, now walking to the door. I'll see if I can't find the medics and the other MPs. The other EMTs. With that, Lucas walked from the room, Fiona quickly turning to Marshall. How can anyone not like him? She asked, just loud enough for Marshall to hear her. Okay, you have a very good point. Again, I'm sorry for rushing to judge. I know you are, she said softly, squeezing his hand. Not to break up this warm and fuzzy moment, but Mo's still looking for Kate. Maybe we should jump in on that, Ash said as Fiona nodded. You're right, Marshall said softly, now looking toward Ignitus. You stay with Marcy. We'll find Mo and Kate. Fiona paused, looking back at Egg, who quickly wiped his eyes. Are you gonna be okay? Yeah, girlie, I'll be fine. Go find Mo and Kate. Ah, Kate. Something's changed in the way you look at me. I can see it in your eyes, he said, circling her. It's not that you're scared. I can tell that easily enough. Suddenly, her chair jerked backwards, making Kate gasp as her world flipped upside down. See, that's the look. You're not scared, not completely, but there's something else there. I'll be damned if it's not a wary kind of respect, he said with a chuckle, like the kind you give a wild animal that hasn't decided if it's going to kill you yet. He continued to stare her down, and Kate refused to look away. She couldn't focus well, but Kate knew the second she showed an ounce of weakness, he'd pounce. So what did you find out about me, kitten? What did you learn that changed the very way you view me? He asked, dragging a finger down her cheek. I know you're a serial killer. It's something twisted, wasn't it? I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Impulse control is a bitch when you're younger. Declan released his hold on the chair as it dropped back into place. The sudden jolt had Kay's vision spinning again as she fought the wave of nausea that came with it. Before you even think of sassing me, just know that nobody you love even knows you're missing yet, so we have hours for me to make up for it. Kate sat in a stubborn silence. Honestly, she wasn't even sure she could talk. Everything felt so distorted and weird. She wasn't even tied to the chair. It felt like her body was made of lead. Really, not even a peep? He asked, still waiting for her to speak. Now Declan smiled at her, and this filled Kate with an overwhelming sense of dread. He began circling her again. Kate's plan was backfiring, and she knew it. She didn't want to show weakness. She thought it would make her more of a target. Now, though, she realized he'd taken her silence as a challenge. I'll bet you found out I was former military. That's an easy enough find I'll throw your way. They train you for a lot of things, for various situations of all sorts. But I've learned that it's not the knowledge you have, but how you use it, he said, snaking his arm around her neck. Before she'd registered what was happening, he'd cut off Kate's ability to breathe. Leaning back, he lifted her from the chair, holding her against his chest. Kate clawed desperately at his arm, and even so, he didn't budge. Oh, you're going to have to try a lot harder than that, Declan said, the humor more than evident in his voice, because I'm not letting you go. Kate could feel her heart pounding violently as her feet scrambled on the floor, bumping against the footrest of the wheelchair. Kate stepped back, pushing off of it as hard as she could. She'd barely moved, but it had been just enough for her to take a gasping breath. This, though, was short-lived. She felt the pressure from his arm lessen on her neck, and it was quickly replaced with the grip of his hand. Shifting his weight, he slammed her to the ground, chair and all, smiling as she let out a shriek. There we go. I was starting to think you'd become mute to spite me. His second hand joined the first, continuing to squeeze. Kate tried so hard not to panic as she fought against him. It was exactly what she wanted, but how could she care when she couldn't breathe? Suddenly his grip loosened, and Kate took a gasping breath that was immediately cut off again. He was toying with her, and she knew it. Her eyes stung with tears as she struggled desperately to breathe. Declan released the pressure again. Taking a breath, Kate spat right in his face. Lifting a hand from her neck, he paused, wiping his cheek. Do you know what it's like? Squeezing the life out of someone, kitten? I'll bet you don't. You couldn't imagine how it feels to watch the light fade from someone's eyes, he said, giving her neck an extra squeeze to drive the point home. It's almost better than sex, but that's nothing in comparison to watching someone break over and over and over. Declan's grip on her neck loosened, and unable to help herself, Kate took shaking breaths. He let her, watching the tears stream from her eyes. Tightening his grip just enough, he could feel her pulse racing between his fingers. Just like a hummingbird, Declan mused. Leaning down, he paused, his lips at her ear. I'm going to break you. Every event you come to, I'm going to find you. I will, and you know I'm going to. When I find you, I'm going to break every ounce of your spirit and destroy you from the inside out. When you're too afraid to come back, that's when I'll start hunting you down. If I have to do that, I'll make you regret not coming more than if you did come. But why? Kate asked, her voice trembling. At last she speaks. Here I was monologuing to fill the silence. You in particular were so intrigued with me. Did you think I'd remain ignorant to the fact that you've been researching me for months? He asked again as he smiled. Kate felt nothing but dread. You were snooping around trying to find every little detail, looking around for all the skeletons in my closet. You know what they say, curiosity killed the cat. So I've decided, since you're so curious, I want to show you personally the best of what I can do. Again, he began applying pressure to her neck as Kate panicked beneath him. No, not again. Please, not again, please, she gasped. I told you I'd make you beg. Welcome to the next 2 years of your life if you make it that long. This time he grabbed her, pulling her upright after slinging his arm around her neck. The pressure returned, taking away her air mid breath. Kate panicked, quickly growing lightheaded, the darkness washing out everything. Sweet dreams, kitten. God damn. Finn. Finn sat in the waiting room. He genuinely didn't think it was possible to be this worried. Never had he felt so helpless, so useless. It had been the better part of an hour before the nurse returned for him. He was led back, the woman speaking as they walked. Your wife is stable. We had to pump her stomach and administer activated charcoal. We're running a toxology screen as well. Whatever she ingested had its effects exacerbated by the alcohol. She was intubated during transport to help with mechanical ventilation. She started breathing unassisted after medications were administered. We'll be monitoring her breathing and alertness before we extubate. Thank God. Is Ember awake? She was briefly before I left. She was very disoriented, but we have someone with her. The disorientation should lessen as the medication works its way through her system. During her stay, we'll also be monitoring her kidneys for any sign of damage. The nurse said as she stood outside the room. What's wrong with your kidneys? Kidneys are the filter of the human body. We need to make sure they aren't damaged by whatever was in the drink. Also, she won't be able to speak to you until we extubate. Finn nodded as she opened the door. He walked over to her immediately, and seeing she was asleep, he took her hand. As terrible as she looked, Ember looked so much better now than when he'd seen her last. Reaching for the chair, he sat down, scooting close. I'm here, Em. I'm right here. I promise. Everything's gonna be okay. Finn whispered, feeling as her grip tightened on his hand. Gently, he squeezed her hand back, feeling as Ember did the same. Ignitus. Helpless couldn't describe the way he was feeling. He couldn't do anything for Ember when she needed him. He couldn't keep her safe. He couldn't keep Mercy safe either. The more he dwelled on it, the more he was spiraling. Taking a breath, Ignitus paced around the waiting room. This couldn't happen again. This could never happen again. He refused to let it. Just as he'd finished another lap, the door opened. Turning, he spotted a nurse with a folder. Mr. Flint? How is she? We've given her the proper corrective medications. We have her situated in her room. She's awake and responsive, but a bit disoriented. Come, I'll bring you to her. Ignitus stayed buried in his thoughts, but seeing Marcy sitting up, he smiled. The first thing he did was lower the bar on the bed before wrapping his arms around her, holding Marceline tightly against him. Baby, what happened to you? I was gonna ask you that. I don't remember a thing after we got our drinks. I don't know what happened, Marcy said, holding on to him, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. Iggy, I'm so tired. I know, baby. Close your eyes and get some sleep. I'll be right here, he said softly. Lay with me? She asked. Without question, he shouldered off his jacket. Climbing on the bed, he pulled Marceline into his embrace. He watched as she turned, nuzzling her face into the crook of his neck. He wasn't surprised to see she'd already fallen asleep. I'm sorry I couldn't keep you safe, he whispered, wiping his eyes. He'd never let this happen again. Never. Mokro. The first place he thought to go was the events office. Halfway there, Mo had decided that that would be stupid. Kate had been determined that this man was a twisted psychopath. She told him that after going through what she'd found, she was sure he was involved in all of those murders. If that was the case, he'd probably bring her somewhere isolated, like the main office. He took uh he took the stairs to the top floor, finding it deserted like he thought he would. Mo hurried down the hall, hearing the echoes of his shoes against the cement as he ran. He looked into the rooms as he passed them. Sliding to a stop, he felt his nervousness grow. The sound of a door slowly creaking opening caught his attention, and turning, he walked towards the sound. Spotting an open door at the end of the hall, he walked to it. At the threshold, his eyes landed on Kate, sitting in the wheelchair, and he froze. DC was leaning against his desk just behind her, his hand holding her head up. He was there with her just like how Moko thought he'd be. I was wondering how long it would take for you to come. Our kittens had an eventful evening, Declan said, staring Mo down, the humor evident in his voice. She'll be exhausted tonight. I hope you didn't wear her out too much for you. He ran his hand along her jaw, watching as Mo clenched his fists. Get the hell away from her. Come get her. We've already discussed, she and I, my expectations of her moving forward, he said, feeling as Kate began to stir. Digging his fingers into her cheeks, he angled Kate's face towards his, watching her eyes open, widening as he leaned close. Playtime's over for today, kitten. Remember what we discussed, he whispered. Releasing his grip, he gave the wheelchair a shove with his foot, sending it towards Mo, who grabbed it, studying her. Kate gasped, her head lolling forward at the sudden stop. Seeing Mo, she scrambled shakily to her feet, immediately stumbling into his arms. She was barely able to stand. Moko caught her, holding Kate tightly to him, as he backed away. He held eye contact with Declan, who continued smiling at him. The moment their stare-off was broken by the wall, Mo lifted Kate into his arms, hurrying down the hall. Making his way through the labyrinth of hallways, Mo carried her out the same door they'd come through earlier in the day. Once he got to his car, he placed Kate in the back seat, texting the band in the group chat. Climbing in the back with Kate, Mo locked them in and began checking her over. She was out for the count again. Outside of the marks on her neck, which she was going to kill him for, she looked okay. Kate, love, wake up, he said gently as he began rubbing her cheek. Come on, baby girl, let me see those beautiful eyes of yours. Kate tried so hard to open her eyes, and finally succeeded, hearing a sigh of relief. Moko looked into her eyes, and the first thing that came to mind was how worried he looked. There you are, he breathed, bringing his lips to hers. They stayed together in the back seat until the car was surrounded by the flashing lights of an ambulance. She could see EMTs, and Ashley was leading them to the car. She recognized Marshall and Fiona among the group and listened as Mo unlocked the door. With everything going on around her, Kate still wasn't able to keep her eyes open and slipped back into the darkness. 1 week later, Kate lay on the couch, her head in Mo's lap, as they watched a movie. The last week, Kate knew she'd been distant. She wasn't trying to be, but at the same time, she needed to think. This was a puzzle, and puzzles were just patterns that hadn't been figured out yet. Are you sure you're okay? Mo asked, looking down, watching as Kate nodded. I'm okay, she said softly. Kate, you keep saying that, but I'm alive, and that's all I can say. He could have killed me, but I'm alive, Kate said softly. Of the three girls, Kate was the only one with a semi-solid recollection of that night. She'd already seen both Marceline and Ember this week. Marcy had no memory of what had happened after receiving their drinks, and neither did Ember. Man. Um, okay. The one thing Kate was certain of was that he'd been toying with her. He could have killed her more times than she could recall, yet he let her go. She was to be his new plaything on this tour, and she knew it. Shug, I want you to train me, Kate said suddenly, pulling Mo from his thoughts. Train you? He asked as she turned to look up at him. Yeah, your boxing stuff? Hearing this, he nodded. Okay, I'll teach you to fight. I know how to fight, Shug. I need to know how to win, she said seriously. With a nod, Mo tapped her shoulder, and as Kate sat up, he stood. Get dressed. Where are we going? On a run. The key to winning any fight is stamina and endurance. We're gonna go on a run mornings and evenings, you and me to build that up, he said, watching as Kate nodded, standing. She paused before leaning forward, giving him a kiss. Thank you. All right. Oh my gosh. All right. So there was a bunch of okay. And then there was like author's notes and stuff. Enjoy the chapter. The time skip has begun and things are about to get wild like they haven't been wild already. Um and there's some like yeah, all right. There's some notes. Hmm. Doo-doo-doo-doo. As we can see, Hudson did not handle the loss of his wife well. His spiraling not only affected his child's life, but his job as well. That, his reaction to her death, and subsequently his behavior, etc., was one of the main reasons the Scream Kings left Nidosphere, aside from being tempted away by Lich. The one thing I genuinely appreciate that has come through his character, I hope, is his genuine remorse for his actions. He knew he messed up. He lost custody of his child for years because of it, but he still wants to make up for those terrible mistakes. He never swept them under the rug. Most importantly, he can admit he royally screwed up. He never denies doing this, nor does he try to excuse it away through his grief. He learned a terribly painful lesson by making the worst mistakes one could, and he owns it. The effects you can plainly see on Marcy. Having no stability for so long as a child, she has difficulty seeing things long term, and when she tries to, it usually goes negatively. She rarely talks about the future. Marcy always lives in the moment because it's how she had to survive. That's actually something we see brought up in the last chapter. When Iggy shows her the house, it's genuinely the second time she talks about a future with him. It's something he's slowly figuring out. Yes, Bonnie is back and she'll be in and out. I personally have not been the biggest fan of Princess Bubblegum in the series, so I've had a tough time getting her character. I personally find her more dark and twisted than she appears, so I have made her as such. Let's get to Lich. I agree, LMAO. He is a shit and every other bad word you can think of. He's about to get so much worse for real. I too love Lucas. He absolutely adores Fiona, and their friendship is genuine. Whether Marshall can get over his jealousy is another story. So casting Jake Jr. was my favorite part of that chapter. Small children roast the hardest, it's just common fact. Finn and Ember are so sweet together, and I love them. Finn definitely matured in their relationship, and it's nice to see them in a good place. He helping to figure things out with their papa is a hugely key point that allows our ending to happen. I too also love how the right family always comes together. They, in my eyes, are the ideal family, one where you can be related or not. But regardless, you're loved all the same, regardless of sex, race, or background. If you're brought home, you're one of the family. I can only imagine you're gonna have a lot to say about Declan. Oh my gosh. Wait, do you see the demon cat from season one, I think, that tormented Finn in the show? Okay, I can't wait for that. Laters, guys, and Happy New Year, everybody. XOXO. Uh, Alright, there's a lot freaking happening. I I oughta see like without spoiling the book for me, I gotta see like where is there an end to this um hmm, hang on, I'm just gonna like try and see. Okay. Oh, yep. Okay, so I just went to the last chapter that's uploaded right now. It says the next chapter will be our epilogue. I'm trying to find out when the last chapter was posted right now. Uh, Updated September 6th, 2021. Wait, this hasn't been updated in over 4 years? Yo, when is the epilogue happening? Dang it. Okay, I don't know, man. I. Alright, this is gonna be the upload for today. It's a 3 chapter upload, so enjoy.